Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacency, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Welcome to another edition of Into the Fray. If you happen to be listening to this on the day of its release, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. A few things to mention before I get to my interview with Jon-Paul Capece, Master in Theological Studies. You can now subscribe to Into the Fray on YouTube. Just search Into the Fray Radio and click on the channel with the nice black ITF logo. As per usual, please make sure to rate and review in iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever podcatcher you happen to use. These reviews go a long way in helping ITF to grow. If you have in the last month or so sent any correspondence through the contact page on intothefrayradio.com, please consider resending it or sending it directly to my email, shannon@intothefrayradio.com. Recently came to my attention that the contact page wasn't quite working properly, but she is back up and running again. To celebrate the beginning of the holidays, I thought I would run a little special. If you sign up right now for the monthly subscription for Insider, you will get the first month for only 99 cents, with every month thereafter being the regular price of $4.99. Go to the website, intothefrayradio.com, click Become an Insider, and upon checkout, simply place in the word Insider for the coupon code. Hit Apply Coupon, and you will see your first month is only 99 cents. Once on the inside, you will have access to all of the content that has been put up so far for my insiders. And speaking of new insiders, I want to send a shout out to Chris, Sarah, and Hawk. Thank you guys very much for your support of Into the Fray. If any of my listeners are in the area of Lexington, Oklahoma, Anomalist's Books and Brews, located at 113 North Main Street, is hosting a few events you may be interested in. Friday, December 1st, from 5 to 7 p.m., Jim Whitehead of the Mid-America Bigfoot Research Center will be present talking about local stories on Bigfoot and other cryptids. And then on Saturday, December 16th, two speakers. The first is Veronica Smith on discerning between positive and negative spirits. Her presentation will be from 1 to 3 p.m. And then that very evening, from 5 to 7, join Karen Pedroza on the dangers of the paranormal. Karen will even be investigating the building during this event. All tickets are $10 for each event mentioned. And again, that's Anomalist's Books and Brews in Lexington, Oklahoma. And now, without further ado, edition Tria of my talk with Jon-Paul Capece.
Just go ahead. I said,
That
go
is
get
the proper way to train a dog. Just,
telling you,
if somebody comes in your house, it's all over, man.
I'm telling you, I could tell you a funny story, but I won't. It's too funny. We're wasting time already.
All right, yeah. Okay, so welcome back, my resident demonologist, Jon-Paul Capece. He's already been on twice, so now will be thrice for this gentleman. So, Jon-Paul, you've been really, really busy, and I don't know where you want to start this little trip we're going to go on. So, I mean, you've had a lot going on. We've conversed back and forth about it, so you can start wherever you like, sir?
So, I guess the biggest breakthrough that I've had so far is, I was on Jeremy's show, Deviatus, after yours, and that was weird because I was his guest, but I was kind of interviewing him.
Right.
And since, being on the both of your shows, I've been getting a ton of emails and a ton of, I don't have a ton of Facebook activity going on, but lots of stories coming on. People starting to tell me things, which is really cool. A lot of personal stories. I've invited a lot of people onto the podcast. So I probably have 10 episodes I could record, at least an hour long, and I understand people want to hear my opinion too. So that's with a couple of just me mixed in, maybe 4 just me and 6 with guests. So, but the big thing that has happened over the last, I guess, couple of months since I've talked to you is that I actually talked to an exorcist, which was extremely illuminating. Jeremy had given me a tip on this guy, and I guess he was trying to reach out to him, but it didn't have any luck. So I just wrote him, Master's in Theological Studies, Providence College, really want to talk. And he got back to me the next day. Yeah, I guess he had some ties to PC, and he's an older gentleman. And I'm just gonna call. I don't want to reveal his name, just because.
Yeah, no
so
problem.
I'm just gonna call him Mr. G or Father G.
Okay.
Father G, and his mentor is actually gonna come into play in some of these stories. I'll just refer to him as Father C. So Father C and Father G. Father G is the one I talked to for about an hour, and I had some questions for him, but he was totally wrapped up in my story, the thing that I saw,
Interesting.
which is because according to him, a lot of people can't see demons. They're not. You can't see them unless you have some special gift, and I forgot what this gift was that he called it. It was a Latin word for something. I can't remember, but so he thinks that I saw it was some type of evil spirit. I guess another category. It wasn't necessarily a demon, but he was really into okay, where do you live? I told him about all the historical cemeteries in my neighborhood, and he was like, whoa, 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 whoa. He goes, how far are you from the nearest historical cemetery? I was like, I don't know, like 300 feet. And it's completely neglected. For some reason, this one, they usually preserve them, but this particular one is completely neglected. You wouldn't even know it's there. And he told me, he's like, you should go to the town hall, research the family, because the road that I live on is named after the family. John Potter Road, it's the Potter family plot. And he's like, you should find out, what this family was into, if they were into witchcraft or if they were into, Satanism, things like that. Because I had talked about my sighting, and then I had talked about my dad seeing these 3.5-inch critters run by, and he was like, oh, there's a couple of confirmation sightings there. So, you should probably look into this further. And, I live in a small town, so we do have a town hall where I can actually go to and get records and things like that. But we went a lot further, and then we started emailing back and forth, and I can just send him out just any question really, and he'll get back to me like really quick. He's pretty enthusiastic about it, and his bishop, he's over with you over on the West Coast there, in California, which is probably, and people probably know who I'm talking about, but he's his bishop gave him permission, I guess, to come out and talk about exorcisms, because it's I don't know, it's not really something that people talk about now, especially in the church, which is really strange. And I think we talked about that in one of our episodes, like, why don't they talk about this? And some of the things that he talked to me about really, I've been studying this stuff for a long time, and some of the stuff that he told me was, I don't know, if it just me missing stuff, or if it was, him, his revelation over time. But there was a lot of, mixing of stuff. Maybe I had gotten stuff wrong. And then he definitely, knew that I had gotten some stuff right, but just a lot of exchanging of ideas about what, the demons are and demonic possession is. And so I thought it would be cool to kind of rewind a little bit and maybe go from where this guy goes, because now this is this is going to go into some strange territory.
I'm happy about that. You know this.
And we're talking first-hand witness stuff here, either by him or his mentor. And they talk about when, and there's a book and there's a movie and there's all this other stuff. But he talks about, the first time he did his own exorcism. He talks about the first time his mentor first believed, like they had that moment of revelation. And, he also talks about some other things that I had no idea about, I think, one of the first things that he mentioned to me that I had no clue about was that Satan was apparently the brightest and most prolific of God's creations, which I had no clue, Yeah, out of all, so, the ranks of God and angels, and then you have mankind, but out of all the angels, Satan was the brightest and the most prolific. And that was so strange to me when I heard that. And then I guess for him to, over the mythology as it is, for him to turn his back and walk away. That was my first question, was because I know I had previously read and said on this show that angels and demons don't have free will. And when I asked him that, and he said, "Oh, no, absolutely, they have free will." And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Yes, I'm pretty sure they, we didn't tell him. I'm pretty sure they don't." I just said, "Well, okay, I'd never heard that before. So could you explain that to me some more?" And he said, in fact, that they have more free will than us, so I'm thinking, like, what does that even mean?
Right. Right.
More free will than us, and he, basically it means they angels on the angelic side, they have the ability to see the future, which I guess could, I guess is a form of free will. Demons don't, but they have demons and devils, and I guess he uses that term kind of like alternatively. And I know there's a difference in some books, but he kind of interchanged the words without really talking much about it. But he said devils and demons can't read the future, but they can predict it because they can see patterns in your brain, and they can kind of predict it from there.
Oh, that's freaky.
Right. So they all have this, and we talked about this too, that, all these demons were once angels, and this is, of course, according to Catholic canon, and I told you why I go off Catholic canon, just because I can trace its roots back 10,000 years. There's a lot of religions, you can trace maybe further, but, for this particular thing that I'm working on, you can trace, I can't trace Lutheranism back 10,000 years, you know what I'm saying? Or any type of Protestantism. But Catholicism, I can, I can trace it back to the, the Tigris Euphrates River Valley, the Akkadians, the Jews, and then the Christians, the Catholics. So then, he started to go into, like, what it was like, and he started talking about how, just going off the hook, right? Like how every state has its own exorcist, every diocese has its own exorcist, and I'm like, whoa. Like, I had no idea any of this stuff was real, I mean, I believed in it, but I didn't know, like if you would ask me right now who's the exorcist of Rhode Island, I would have no clue.
But it's going on that much under our noses that we need one per state at the very least. That's incredible.
At the very least, right? And then when you take places like Texas, right, or somewhere like Nevada or California, you would expect that there would be multiple ones. And, it's, and that prompted, of course, the question, which, I had to ask was like, well, I mean, how frequent is this going on? How many have you done? He said he had done over 50. What did he call them? Not just exorcisms, but involuntary exorcisms, I think he called them. Yeah, and then he had done something like 300 deliverance prayers. A deliverance prayer is more or less like a blessing of a house. It's a small blessing. It can kind of, I don't know, like taking Zycan for a cold, I guess.
Right. So that would be like something that he could do in the beginning stages. And we've talked about the various stages in the past as well.
Right.
But that's like way before you're getting to the point where you actually need an exorcism then. That's interesting. He's done at least 300 of those deliverance prayers.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, his mentor... His mentor was doing, he did his internship, not internship, he was on sabbatical, and his bishop asked him to go to Rome and become an exorcist. And, his, what's the word I'm looking for? His mentor was doing up to 13, 14, 15 exorcisms a day. In Italy, a day. He said people were lining up at the doors. I mean, to get into this place, and this is all in the book. You can read about this, and he said, sometimes people would be lining up at the doors, and some people would be quiet, some people would be alone, some people would have their wives or girlfriends, and then he would come out and open up the door and. He would pick who goes first. The door would shut. 5 minutes later, it would sound like someone let a Wolverine loose in there. I'm like, oh my God, that's terrifying. And then the woman would come back out, or the man, and it brought me to that point to ask him, because he kept saying women. And I was like, what is it with the women? Why are women constantly being possessed? I don't think I've ever seen a movie where a guy is, the possession of Jim. It's always like the possession of like Emily Rose or whatever. He said that it's partially because women are more intuitive than men when it comes to their own bodies, which I believe is true. I think women can tell if they're pregnant, before they need to take a test or something like that. Things like that. I'm not a woman, so. But
unless that's another book, Jon-Paul. No.
A whole totally different podcast.
Yeah, no, I don't want to give away a whole lot, and it's really so. He's talking to you and giving you permission to put a lot of this in the book that you're working on.
No, so I've abandoned the book totally, and I'm just going straight podcast.
Are you? Okay. I wasn't sure if that was the plan, but I don't want to give away too much either way, and we haven't even really mentioned the podcast, by the way.
Right.
And we need to. But, that was my basic question there I was getting at, is I don't know how much you actually want to, give away on my show prior to kind of...
No. This is all basically in the book written about him. So, everything we talked about, I guess I'll delineate from the book, so anybody can pick up this book and read it. And, the only reason why I'm not saying his name now, not that I think he's listening to podcasts, it's just because at some point I want to ask him to come on the show.
No, it's about trust, and you need to.
Right.
We need to keep that egg whole as long as humanly possible, and maintain that relationship. I totally get that.
Yeah, and I love him to if I could get him on the show and to talk about, what's in the book and what's, differentiated from the movie. Of course, the movie was more Hollywood than the book was. Yeah. And, if I could get him on the show, I mean, as far as a podcaster, I think that would be huge. It would be.
Do they use his real name in the movie? And I will not mention the movie name just in case, but I can't
remember, actually.
I can't remember. I haven't. when you wrote me and said, "Oh, it's just like this, it's based on this movie thing," and I was like, "Oh my god, I haven't watched that in years," but I need to. I meant to before we talked.
Oh, I told you the name of the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What was his first name? Begin with G?
I don't remember. That's the.
Okay.
I could pull up Google right now, but no.
But anyway,
I haven't watched that
I'm
movie
sure
in
a lot
time.
of people even know who we're talking about just by listening.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he doesn't listen to podcasts. So, like I said, we spend most of our time talking about, the little creature I saw, and he wanted to know a lot about my family lineage and about Padre Pio's gloves and why I wanted to go get them. And like, it just became an interview all of a sudden of him interviewing me. And it was just absolutely maddening. And it was crazy.
You know me. I'm very like, hey, it's cool if you don't want to talk about this or that. You know me. I'm fine.
Yeah.
You just say no. Let's go to something else. But you kind of mentioned that his mentor, Father G, and his mentor, Father C, they had a moment of revelation.
Yes.
Would you mind touching on that at all? Or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that seems like it would be a real coup de grace, kind of a crazy moment or something.
It is a crazy moment, and that's what's going to... And it actually led me to... you remember how we talked about the different stages of possession? Mm-hmm. Well, that has changed. Because apparently I had botched that up, according to him. Now, he didn't use that word. He just, I think I had confused a few things. Because, you talk oppression, obsession, possession. These things all sound the same. But it's, in fact, what goes on within them that are very, very different. So the stages of possession as they are now, and I'll go through these first, and then I'll get to Father C's kind of confirmation experience and some of the things he saw. Because I know I texted you one of those things, and you were kind of like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, so, just a little bit. Whoa, yeah.
And and actually, for the life of me, I can't remember if that was him or one of his comrades. Because there's just exorcists all over Italy during certain parts of the year. But the first step of possession is actually temptation. I initially had it as obsession, but it is temptation. And it is temptation to commit a sin, basically. That's about it. It's, I don't know, it was temptation. That's the first step, I guess, towards something evil, but that's really kind of not, it's in the peripheral, according to him. The real first step of becoming on your way is infestation. So infestation is basically Foxhole Farm. It's a haunted house, right? It's a location, it's an object, it's a place. Haunted house. It's things like pots and pans moving. It's like Amityville horror stuff, right? Where the lion, they move it upstairs, and they had that porcelain lion, and then it was downstairs again the next day. It's mysterious pools of blood or ectoplasm or whatever. I don't want to sound Ghostbusters, but infestation is basically. I guess the ghost hunting word for it would be poltergeist. So they're one and the same. Infestation and poltergeist are kind of synonymous. So after that, you have oppression. Now, oppression is the part of the possession cycle that gets scary, because that's when you get the pushing and the shoving, sometimes violently, the scratching, the burning, things like that. And I've talked to some people. One of them was on Jeremy's show, Deviatus, and I talked to her, not through Skype, but we emailed each other back and forth, and she was shoved after playing with the Ouija board. And she was terrified to give up the demon's name. She had thought the demon had given her her name through the Ouija board, and she spelled it out for me, and through a combination of Latin and a bunch of other stuff, I kind of figured out what it was. And it wasn't saying its name. It was basically saying what it was going to do.
Oh,
and
nice.
Yeah, so when you run it through a couple of word filters, which kind of make it into, you take the letters apart and you make different words. And you do that in Latin and in both in English. And I came up with two, like a deviant and to shove, So to me, it sounded like it was like just some deviant thing that told her, look, I'm going to shove you. And it did. And which was like...
That's almost even creepier and a better tie-in than it telling her its name. I mean, it told her what it was going to do, and it did it.
Yeah, and to me, and one of the things too, according to Father G, is demons don't talk very much. It's not like in the movies; they don't say their names. They're usually very quiet. They're usually just always swearing and screaming and shut up. And if they do give a name, because there's that old adage like, oh, you got to learn the demon's name before you can cast it out, and there is some truth to that, but when a demon says, Leviathan or Astaroth or, Lucifer or Beelzebub, it doesn't mean that it's him. It just means that it could be one of his rank and file. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And wouldn't there be, or are they not allowed to do this? Aren't they allowed just to be a trickster and say whatever name they wanted to?
Yeah, they could absolutely say, I'm Dave, and in the book you'll read that, even the Exorcist has had tricks played on him from demons. Like he's left an exorcism and he's been on his way home and all of his text messages were just somehow deleted. And the next day during the next session, the demon said, "You want your text messages back?"
Oh my gosh.
Really,
Oh my gosh.
and it's like, and there was another episode where the demon had threatened the priest with immolation, and on the way home, the priest's car caught fire. I guess it overheated, and he survived. It just caught fire under the hood. There's some real life, even though they're not like physical beings, there is this intertwining of physical and reality. And I'll get to that later, because the book describes it great, and I emailed him on it and he described it a little bit further. But we left off at oppression. The next one is obsession, which I thought was first, which is kind of like temptation, it sounded to me.
Right.
But in the oppression stage can also be called demonic temptation. So there you go. I guess that's why I got the two confused. But during this phase, I guess can almost mimic possession, because it is just like a persistent, like mind-racking, intense, like nothingness. Just can't focus on anything. Like pounding headaches or stomach aches, or just intruding thoughts, pervasive thoughts that you can't get out of your head no matter how hard you try. Perhaps it's the thing that tempted you in the first place. Maybe you were, I don't know, tempted to do something you weren't supposed to do, like steal your dad's car to buy drugs. And now that's all you can think about. You're obsessing on it, and no matter how hard you try, you can't get it out of your head. And I guess that's the demon's way of kind of encroaching its way into your mind, or into your brain, which is more physical than the mind. I know we've had that conversation, because there's a lot of theology behind this. It's like, does it happen in the mind or does it happen in the brain? Because we know the brain is a physical organ, but the mind isn't. You know what I'm saying? So where does this all kind of happen? But according to Father G, possession isn't a sin. It's just something that happens, and this is actually blew me away. It's something God allows to happen. Apparently, he allows Satan to possess people, or the devil, which...
Is that part of some ancient bargain, or why would he allow that to happen?
Well, that's a good question. Because you think, God, what are you doing? But it's basically about strengthening yourself. It's about emboldening yourself. It's about emboldening those around you. That's why a lot of nuns and priests become possessed. It's a way of it's like a trial, more or less. It's a way of saying, how strong is your faith? And I do have some further questions for him on that because, it seems to me that during an exorcism, the priest is doing most of the work.
Right.
So it seems like an exercise for the priest. But also, when I read the book, I found out, too, that it was also a trial for the individual. Because somewhere inside the individual is there and is cognizant in, how much they're willing to fight back is, I guess what's being measured.
Yeah, and I get the trial for the nuns or the priests and them being, very marked for something like that. But then why would, a young girl be possessed? That kind of...
Right. Right. No. Exactly. I mean, is that a trial on her or is that a trial on her mother?
Right. Is that some way back in her family? She's paying for something that an ancestor did or...
It could be. And he talks a lot about, in the book, they talk a lot about curses. And curses are like the worst kind of possessions which is crazy to me. And because they come from a place of sin, they come from a place that's really bad. They talk about this one girl in the book. They talk about she's been going to Father C for 40 years. 40 years she's been going every week. And it was because her mother cursed her in the womb.
Oh, God.
And yeah, she went and she tried to have an abortion and she couldn't. It was too late, and she just flat out cursed her. She said, "This is a cursed child. I don't want this kid, and I'm cursing it."
So she's been going every week for 40 years.
Yeah.
What's come of that? I mean, what kind of work can he even do to combat that?
He just keeps in the book. He just keeps doing his thing, and it's funny because that's how the book starts. Because the first thing he told me to do was read the book, and then he gave me a list of other books I have to read. So he's like giving me homework.
That's awesome.
Which is great, because I think it's great. He's like, "Oh, have you read this? Have you read this? Have you read this?" And I'm like struggling to write them down, But he said that exorcisms can be as crazy as some of the stuff you see in movies, or as mundane as going to the dentist, including like a little card with when your next appointment is,
See, and that's crazy because how many of us could be walking around with some kind of a curse like that woman has?
Well, that's what gets wondering. And after this episode, you're going to be wondering, because I know I am now.
I know. You're like, gosh.
I never get headaches. And for 2 days in a row, I had a headache. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do?
Well, I have to buy one of those with the white magic occult books and try to do the anti-hex and
See, that's the thing, though. Like this whole, the whole Catholic theology thing. It's like you can't touch any of that stuff either.
Right.
I don't care if it's like gray magic, brown magic, green magic, Gandalf, whatever.
It's still bad, yeah.
Right.
It's still not of the righteous walk, right? I don't know why I'm so stuck on that woman. I just have one more question about that, and then we can move on.
Yeah.
How did she know that happened? Though, did the mother have the child, and the child is old enough to get this information? Oh my God, that's terrible.
The mother.
What a great mother.
I know, huh?
Holy crap, dude. That's awful.
The mother told that she was cursed as a child. But yeah, so the next and final one after obsession is possession.
Okay, and you're not possessed. That's your dog in the background. I don't mind. I just want to say before I get emails like, I heard a demon while you guys were talking about demons.
I am gonna lock her out.
No. She's
no.
fine.
She's not.
She's fine. I didn't want people to email me and go, "Oh my God, you guys are really you got really great stuff going on because you're conjuring things alive while you're talking."
I don't know if you know anything about shepherds, but they do tend to whine when they don't have enough attention.
They're very talkative. No, she's fine. Let her stay.
And but if she starts to get a little more talkative, I'm just gonna put her outside for a little. Not outside.
She's fine right now.
Not where it's 10 degrees. And
yeah, you're like, not outside, guys, because we were talking about it's like, yeah, super cold where Jon-Paul is right now.
It's probably 90 where you are, so.
It was actually quite chilly today. I think it was in the 60s, maybe?
I was going to say 70s. Yeah, I'm going to come through this microphone.
Yeah, you're like, don't even say it.
I'll curse you. I'll do it.
You're like, speaking of.
But
I've been reading up on it, so don't piss me off.
Don't get me going. So the final stage is possession, which is involuntary. There's two types of possession: involuntary and voluntary. So there are people who voluntarily invite the devil into themselves. Mm-hmm. I guess this would be through satanic practice, satanic worship, things like that. Those people are prone to what is called integration, which is where the demon fully is integrated with the soul of the person, which is NG. There's no way. Actually, there is one way of coming back from integration. Another word for it is perfect possession. And we talked about this. The only way is divine intervention. Yeah. And that was the story of Douglas Dean and how the story of the Exorcist came about. But anyway. Involuntary possession, because it's usually involuntary. People don't want to be possessed unless you're, I don't know, crazy. Yeah. Which apparently it is pretty rare. Although in Italy, you can only imagine it's just prevalent. Italy
Why is it so rampant?
In Italy, because Italy is, I think the population is 85% Catholic. Yeah. And that's a huge city in Rome, and they're all, it's just priests.
That's true. I was just going to say they're all so tied into the church, then it's just a breeding ground for, and probably a buffet for demons. For demons, right? They're like, oh, this land is prime time. Yeah.
And you're right. True. I think a lot of the metric of the book is Italy. Worldwide, I don't think, I think it's even more rare, I've never heard of a case of it happening. Of course you wouldn't, because although in Italy they don't seem to care. It's just one of these things that's just out and open.
Just part of life there, I guess.
Yeah, which is weird, because in some countries he describes in the book, like Germany doesn't have any exorcists. And
that's because they really don't need them, or because they really keep it on the down low? They don't believe.
No. Yeah, they just think that it's old superstition. And
but what if someone is acting like they're possessed? Then they just get locked up because they're crazy?
I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Wow.
Or they wait for him to commit a homicide.
Right. That makes you wonder, though, because you're like, well, I won't. surely demons aren't just like, well, screw Germany. We don't need to go there. We'll just hang out.
Right.
Surely they don't give a crap about boundaries
they don't
and
believe
borders.
In us, right.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I wonder what happens to those folks that just need. Maybe they need years, or maybe they need months or weeks of, quote unquote, therapy from a priest or a father that knows what they're doing, and then they can be quote unquote cured. But that's
it's possible, and like I said, there's the deliverance prayers possible, Yeah. And this is going back a ways when he was, I think he was doing his internship, not internship, keep saying internship, when he was studying under Father C. It was in, I think, late 70s. So this is going back a ways. But he is alive and well today and still doing exorcisms. I think he's
really badass.
Got it. Yeah, he's in his 80s too, which is and they come at you sometimes, the people who are possessed. Like, it's not like they're just sitting there flopping around. Like, there was a case in the book, it talks about someone who was possessed. There was the only case in the book that talked about a priest dying, I think, where the possessed individual ripped a coil out of the bed and stabbed the priest in the neck.
Oh. That's a true story, though.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, that's a true one. So involuntary possession, and like I said, it's not a sin. What led to it possibly is, right? So playing with a Ouija board, playing with tarot cards, things like that are considered sins in the Catholic Church. So you would have to, go to, I don't know, whatever it is they do. I know all this stuff about theology, but I don't know anything about divination, so I guess I should, priests study divination, they study, blessings and how to do all that stuff, how to conduct mass on Sunday. I don't know anything about that. I'm not even Catholic. I've never been baptized. So I don't know anything about going to church. I'm like the guy who builds the airplane, but I don't know how to fly it.
Right.
So that's the way I approached it, which is funny because, after coming to that realization and after talking to this guy and reading the book, I actually did sign up for RCIA the other day, which is Rites of Catholic Initiation for Adults, and I just decided that I'm going to get baptized.
That's awesome. And it's weird that you said, 'cause I was just going to ask what the belief is as far as if you're not baptized, but you're kind of dabbling and talking about things like this. I wonder if it makes you more open to leading up to a possession or something like that. So that's cool.
Yeah,
Cool you're doing
and Father G talks about that in the book. He talks about locking eyes with demons and like saying, "Oh, okay, am I taking this home with me?" And anybody who's seen the documentary or read the book on Malachi Martin. He was supposedly killed by a demon. He was an elderly man in his 80s, and he was getting a book off the top shelf of his library, and he was standing on a step stool, and he said he felt something push him off the step stool. He felt hands push him, while he lay be basically broken, for a couple of days before he passed in the hospital. He just told the people who were closest to him something pushed him off the stool while he was reaching for the top shelf. So it definitely, and I have, I've gotten some tattoos recently of protection, which is weird because it's like, okay, I'm mortifying my flesh in one thing, but on the other hand, it's a good way.
Do you have like the the old Constantine tattoo where he has to put his wrists together and it just opens the whatever that was, right? You're like,
no, I got this. That's a pretty cool one. That's a good.
It is cool. I like that.
I should put them up online. But I do have an old, I think 16th century circle that says the shield of God protects me. And then above that, I do have an old wood carving of the devil from the 5th century that I had redrawn as a tattoo on top of that. And I don't know. I figured. I have a lot of tattoos anyway, so
yeah, I would like to see those.
Kind of.
That's really cool. You did that. I mean, considering the kind of stuff that you might be, doing, and we can get into that later if you want to, but.
And hey, look, if I get possessed, you're the first person I'm calling. So
yeah, with that grumbly voice like I've got now, except way deeper, and it's like got ancient knowledge. Please freaking call me, man.
Anyway,
this will be the best episode you've ever had. Yeah.
Are you sure? Yes. Oh man.
Let's play a game. What is your name?
You're gonna have to do an exorcism.
Yeah. I'll read up on it. I'll get on Wikipedia tonight. I'll be ready to go.
There you go. Wikipedia you.
Yeah, man.
So where was it? Yeah, so integration, we talked about that.
Yeah.
So here comes the gross stuff.
Which means amazing.
So the eyewitness accounts, some of the stuff that Father G and Father C have seen. I don't remember who saw what. There are also some accounts of different priests, because, Father C had his mentor as well, going back, probably to 1940 or something. But the thing that Father C saw that turned him and made him believe was an exorcism. It was being done on a young girl, of course, and she wasn't very active. She was pretty lethargic. She was lying in bed, and she wasn't thrashing around or anything like that. And as soon as he walked in, she looked at him and just stared at him, and then started vomiting up buckets of human semen.
Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
That actually is quite gross.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
Buckets. It gets, that's the grossest one, I'll tell you. And it was like, so when you see things in the Exorcism, head spinning, pea soup, no, but this
pea
is
soup looks
way worse.
really delicious compared to
That's
what
what
you
I'm
just
saying.
mentioned.
Yeah, and it was like, now these are all like eyewitness accounts. There was a woman who came up to, I don't think it was Father C. I think it was one of his brothers during Mass, and she asked in her voice, she said she needed help, and she was kneeling and he was sitting, and he said, "Well, what's wrong?" And she looked up, and he said, her face contorted in a way you couldn't even imagine. He said her muscles, you could see them moving underneath her skin, and her jaw dropped and hung to the right to the point where it was 9 inches wide, and it just stared at him, and he just stared back at it, and it just kind of reconfigured itself, and she walked away. And I think she ended, I don't know what became of her, if she came back and got an exorcism or anything, but I'm wondering, like, how do you keep your composure when you see something like that?
And I guess the thought is that when a demon is doing such a thing to you and your body, and let's just take the woman with the jaw, for instance.
Right.
So, because we cannot open our mouths that wide, how does it not break anything or permanently disfigure? I don't.
Right.
That's crazy.
And I will tell you that. So there are a list of things that people have vomited up in front of Father C. Nails, metal shavings, needles, small animals, crabs.
Wow.
Yeah, and one woman vomited up a black toad, and he went to go grab the toad, and it just kind of turned to ash. So
that's amazing. Oh my God! Seriously.
Tell me about it. I mean, so the deal is, and this is very interesting, and I learned this through the book, and subsequently emailed Father G on it. The demon, I guess the common conception of the demon is that he is in your body, right? He's possessing you. He's inside of you, and that's not the case. Think of it as a pipeline. Where the demon is on one end of the pipeline and you're on the other end of the pipeline, and the way they can locate and bilocate is almost kind of in a way where I think, oh, I'm sitting here talking to you, and then 1 second I'm thinking about oh boy, well, it'd be nice to be in on the West Coast right now where it's 70 and cold apparently, but like how my mind travels that fast. Like that's how they travel back and forth. It's not like a physical thing, there's no locomotion involved. It's a pipeline, so the demon isn't in the person. So the nail, even though the person has a lot of pain in their stomach and they vomit up a nail, there's no nail in their stomach. It manifests in the mouth and it comes out. Yeah. That's how it doesn't do any damage. And when they do things like, their jaws, when they bang their heads against things, and almost everybody that they talk about doesn't remember what happens during a complete involuntary possession. So, when they're in there, right, when they're in there thrashing around, doing their thing, usually when they come out of it, they don't remember a thing. And that's kind of one of the telltale signs they can, you can tell whether someone's faking it or not, if they remember what's going on. But usually they shouldn't remember a thing. And I think that's how no damage is done, because there was also another instance where Father C saw a woman, I think she was lying on the floor, and she bent backwards completely, until her fingers were touching her toes, and she made a complete circle. And, she didn't break anything, just probably some popping and cracking going on. But, again, there's this theological debate, as to whether or not the demons, they're afflicting us physically, sure, and they're afflicting us metaphysically as well,
Sounds like they're coming for you, Jon-Paul.
I know, I was just going to let that helicopter pass.
No, things like that just make it more authentic. Yeah. Even though I'm lying about the coming to get you thing, but,
I hope not.
We're in real locations, and, we have other people around us. Sometimes it's the cops above or some kind of fire somewhere, and, things happen, and they bleed into the recording. Just like the grumbly demon that was in the background a little while ago with Jon-Paul. It'll come back eventually, I'm sure.
Well, the grumbly demon's pretty chill right now.
I'm just kidding. She's no demon. It's just funny how you train her, though. That's amazing. All right, so yeah, that I've never heard that before. So if they're vomiting up nails or small animals, the toad thing is fascinating. It turns to ash, but it manifests in their mouth. So they never actually really had to deal with it, especially since they don't remember it once it's all over.
Right, and they never have to deal with the physical trauma of vomiting nails. I mean, that would destroy you.
You're right.
It would kill you.
Yeah.
And, I think that's, and they do talk about levitations. They do talk about, people levitating, 3, 4, 5 inches off the chair while Father C is doing his ritual. So that's a thing. That's not just confined to the movies. I had people flying away 10 feet in the air. I'm talking small, levitations, things like that.
How about climbing up walls?
Nothing on that so far, but superhuman strength is a thing. But Father C, because he had done so many exorcisms by the time Father G was his apprentice, he he had this uncanny ability to just stop them, and he was unflinching, really. When you read the book, it's amazing how unflinching this guy was. They recall a story about when this one guy who was he was full on possession mode, got up and took a swing at him, and the guy's fist stopped like an inch before his face, like it just stopped, like there was just a barrier there. And Father C blew on the guy's hand, and the guy recoiled like he just blew fire on his hand. And, there's numerous accounts of when people try to leave, he just puts his hand on their head and just pushes them back in the seat, and it's, the power that this guy wielded, that's the thing. It doesn't come from the exorcist. All this power comes from God. That's the deal, and in the beginning of the story, in the beginning of the book, and what Father G and I were talking about was, where does the power come from? And it comes from the saints, and it comes from, the Virgin Mary, and it comes from, it comes from God. And that is what terrifies the demons the most. And they can't even bring themselves to say certain names, which is, they just can't do it, and all the relics, the holy water and the crucifix, those are all real. You sprinkle holy water on someone who's possessed, and they're going to react. If you put a crucifix on someone who's possessed, they're going to feel a burning sensation wherever you put it, or some type of sensation. And it did talk a little bit about how that blended into cinema. And I guess there were some exorcists, just like in the movie based on this guy, who were on set to talk about, no, it's more like this, not like this. So the things that you do see in movies, they're not necessarily inaccurate, which is interesting to me. I mean, they're, obviously they're Hollywood, they're hyped up, they're amped up. It's all about cinema. And, all that stuff and all that jazz. But, I don't know.
I remember in one of your emails, you said that you mentioned something about, and I don't know if this came from Father G or not, or from the book, but that angels and demons are dying, that they needed to occupy us because they were dying.
Yeah, that totally threw me for a turn. He said they were both dying races, and kind of brought to mind that image of the angel on one end of your shoulder and the demon on the other end of your shoulder, and they kind of, one's telling you to do this and one's telling you to do that, and but I didn't get into that a heck of a lot more with him because I was really out of my depth on that because I'd never heard anything like that before. Like, but on a metaphysical point of view, if a demon and an angel, if they work through pipelines and they attach themselves to human beings, then I guess that's the deal. You attach yourself as maybe like a fetus does to the womb, and maybe that's the way it works. The demon attaches itself as a fetus to the womb. The angel does the same thing, only with grace instead of through possession.
Well, yeah, that'll be cool for you guys to kind of dive more into that if you have the time, for even your own knowledge,
I mean, I never heard of something like that before. I mean, I always thought that they lived forever and they were these they are perfectly created beings and they have this tremendous amount of knowledge, but for them to be dying was I mean, I guess it makes sense though, because human beings are dying, right? And, if God creates human beings, and I mean, what's there going to be left? Just a bunch of angels and demons walking around on the planet? It doesn't make sense. So I think maybe what he's getting at is that they're kind of going with us. As we go, they go.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's where it kind of felt like it was going to go. And I get that idea. As we go, they go.
What about, let's see. I just had something in my head and it fell out. That is pretty much the way that rolls. Oh, I know what I was going to ask, and this may be a really stupid question, and we may have already covered it, but maybe I just didn't come out and say it like this, and then just to kind of have maybe a straight answer just straight away. But I'm not as familiar, like a lot of people, with this stuff, so you would be the person to ask. And again, this may be a really stupid question, but there are the demons that react when, you're like, in the name of Jesus, you shall be banished. And I know there's a whole other side to that and a process, but the basic idea is that is what will get the attention of said demon. Now, what about if you have, or does this even exist? Are there demons that, like a tulpa, that are man-made? And can they then, how can you fight that if those are even a real thing?
So I don't... I guess we're starting to blend shamanistic, theology into Catholic theology. So in the case of a tulpa, it reminds me more of, are you familiar with the Jewish golem?
Yes.
Yeah. So a golem is pretty much a tulpa. And they're these created beings made of clay, and they do the bidding of the person who makes them, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But, I think, we don't create our own demons, but I think by thinking about them a lot invites them in. So whereas, we could, like you guys used to joke about creating this into the FRAY tulpa, and just having and that stuff, I just listened to a fantastic episode of Mysterious Universe where they talked about that kind of stuff, about how, about focusing your energy on things. And, they just had this group of people focus on like plant seeds, and the tomatoes grew bigger, So, certainly the power of the mind is unparalleled. Like, we haven't even begun to, touch the capabilities of the mind. So creating a teleport, is it out of the realm of possibility? Absolutely not. But, these things that we're talking about are ancient, incorporeal beings that have been around since forever. And I don't think that anything else would have an effect on them being them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and then people bring this up a lot. It's like, oh my God, well, what if aliens came and they just landed on the White House lawn and like, we're aliens and that would be the end of God? And like, well, no. Why would that be the end of God? I don't understand. Why couldn't an alien get possessed? A devil may be like, ooh, check this out.
Look at that weird little dude. I'll ride around in that for a while.
I'm hopping in that thing. Whoa.
Doesn't even have to blink or eat. Hell yeah, dude.
You communicate that telepathic. What? I mean, so much of this stuff is people try to put it all under one umbrella, and I don't think it necessarily has to be. Especially when he told me that, and I asked him, he's like, nah, people don't see demons. I was like, yeah, but, I'm reading this book here and it's telling me that, I guess maybe he's right, because it did say of the reported sightings of demons, 90% of them are referred to as shadow people,
What about the 10% though? What does a demon look like? Does he say? I mean, of the people, if he's ever talked to one, that he's like, okay, maybe you really did see a demon.
He didn't tell me because he wanted to hear what I saw.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
No,
to plant any ideas, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
So you guys didn't get really past that as far as once because you kept saying that he got stuck on your story, which is really cool, but you guys didn't circle back to what he then may have heard of or seen himself.
No, because I think what he wanted to do was bait me. I think a lot of what he was doing was baiting me, whether or not I could see them or not. And
to see if you're legit, which he's like, okay, yeah, you can see some stuff, so let's keep talking about that.
But he did just keep on continuing to describe it as an evil spirit. He never said it was a demon. So, maybe the reason I've never seen a shadow person is because I don't have the ability to see a demon, I forgot I really can't remember the name that he referred to those people. It's like a Latin word for seer or something like that, which I'm sure I could, remember if I tried hard enough. But he was really interested in my family lineage after that. He was like, well, what about, does your mom have this? Can she do this? I said, well, she's a 3rd degree Reiki master. She's really good with healing with her hands. He's like, all right, go back even further and further. I told him about Padre Pio's gloves and the relationship they had with my great uncle. And, so he was trying to figure out if I had this ability, I think, because I think some of the things that I said may have been right on the nose. You know what I'm saying? I just the impression I got from the guy. Some of the descriptions I gave of what I saw, put him in a position where like, maybe, you know what I'm saying?
It's just interesting because you saw what you saw, and everybody can listen to that in episode 84, the little gremlin looking being.
Right.
The details are in episode 84. I highly encourage everyone to go back and listen to that. You saw that, and then later on you found out your father saw those little 3-inch black little shadowy things. So those are two very different things to see.
No,
3 foot. Sorry, yeah. But he doesn't classify either one of those as being demonic. That's interesting.
Right. He just thought that, they could have been some evil spirit manifested by this, Potter family whose road I live on and whose family plot I live 300 yards.
SHIT then, if
it really
that's
is
the case, because especially what you saw, nope, hashtag hell no. That thing was wrong in so many ways.
Right. And that picture that the guy showed,
God.
That picture that the guy sent was, I don't know who the artist was, but that thing was so on point. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, Chris Holm. It is the...
God. Kudos to him, man. That thing gave me, I was like, I'm right back there again.
Yeah, that's the main image for the Into the Fray Radio Facebook group. So if anybody is interested in seeing that, it's been up there a long time.
I know.
I know you're not on Facebook much, but in fact, I'm in Facebook jail right now, which is a little liberating because I don't really have a lot of option. I can't post or comment in any group, including my own.
Why are you in Facebook jail?
Oh, God. Just breaking the law. No, I posted, I guess, too many times in a row. My last episode, I get on, Thursday night, an episode comes out. Friday morning, I get up and I post to the whatever groups it might be pertinent to. And I guess the old Facebook algorithm flagged me as a little bit of a lawbreaker. So I got locked out for a whole week. I'm like, you a-holes. So anyway, but yeah, if anybody wants to see that image, that's the easiest way is the Facebook Into the Fray Radio group. And anybody can go and ask to join that. For now, I can still let you in the group. I just can't interact with you. So,
let yourselves in.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting, though.
And who was it in? I think it was in the episode you had with Luke Johnson where he was thinking, gargoyle. He kept saying, gargoyle. Was that Luke Johnson?
Yeah.
Yes. Listen to that episode. All I kept thinking about I think I friended him on Facebook and he responded. All I kept thinking about when I hear his name is like Luke, John's son. Like, my God, that's the most Catholic name I've ever heard in my life.
That's cool, right? Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's Luke, John's son. It's like, there's so much going on in that guy's life. I got to get him on a podcast if I start.
You really do. And he can probably come on and tell entirely different stories related to the ones he's already told. Or, he's a great guest, too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Shekinah glory and all that stuff he was talking about. Fascinating.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I want to get into that stuff, and I looked up some of that stuff, and I've since forgotten. I got to write some of that stuff down, but it is I found a very different kind of thing that he was talking about. So I want to kind of talk to him about what I was finding and compare notes. But we'll do that some other time, Luke, because I know you're listening.
Yes, he will be.
So reach out to me, or I'll reach out to you. But anyway. Yeah, so this whole demonology thing is it's made me totally, I don't know, I mean, I've gone through a lot of school and I've gone through a lot of years of studying it, and then like all of a sudden one day it just kind of hits you and you think to yourself like, crap, like this might be real.
It's so interesting too, because even since we've been talking, it's changed so much. Like, there's so much more information that has come out, even for you personally. And that's another thing we need to touch on. And you've mentioned Padre Pio already a couple times.
Right.
And we need to, we're teasing that for a reason. It's a huge, huge deal. But it's been changing
we didn't talk
so
about
much.
That?
No, I don't think we talked about that on the show yet. That's just been between you and I. Kind of, it's taken so long to actually hop on together that it seems like we've already covered it, but we actually haven't.
That's amazing.
So whenever you want to hop on into that, because that is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, so when it's funny because when I was talking to Father G, he was going back through my family history and this, that, and the other thing. And I told him one of the reasons I wanted to go to Italy was to retrieve this, class 1 relic. And, I told him that my mother's I guess great uncle, so it would be her great uncle, one of those deals, definitely in the family. My mother's maiden name is Cardenti. It's an old Italian name. We had a castle in the 14th century.
Amazing.
And they've always been politicians, right up until my grandfather died. And I want to say he died about 3 or 4 years ago. And he was a politician. He was a state rep. And every Cardenti was a politician, like for the last 700 years. And every single one of them was also cheated on their wives.
No kidding.
Yes. They just couldn't keep it in their pants. So they had in common. And it's funny, I actually heard the story of how they lost the castle. Was that he was the mayor of Cassette, Italy, and they lived in the castle. And every time he got caught fooling around with someone's wife, he gave him a parcel of land. And before you know it, he had no land. He just had the castle he lived on.
God. Dude, that's a lot of hunting the old,
Right.
I don't need to say the word, so wow. Lost a whole castle over it? Come on, dude.
Come on, man.
Wow.
The old badger.
Sorry about shagging up the wife there. Here's a parcel of land for you.
That parcel you're living on and working, you can keep that.
Yeah.
Just keep this.
Man.
And that kid, yeah. Actually, I have a stone from the castle. I'll take a picture of it.
Oh, that's cool.
He was also fascinated by the vampire folklore, which we'll get into too. I did want to talk about that. But yeah, so I talked to him about, how my mother's great uncle, her uncle in Italy was fascinated with her. He was fascinated with two people, her and Padre Pio. He was a poet, and he was an artist, pen and ink. And he used to write these very small poems. I sent you one, I think, in the picture. Mm-hmm. Very brief poems accompanied by pen and ink drawings. And the only two poems that I've seen him write about people have been about my mother and have been about Padre Pio. Mm-hmm. And he thought my mother was the most beautiful woman in the entire world. And that is what the poem is about. And, when my mom was 18, 19 years old, she really was really attractive. And Uncle Franco was like blown away by this, and he wrote a poem about it. Mm-hmm. But the only other person he wrote a poem about was Padre Pio. And, so we get on Skype with Enzo, who is Franco's son, and we're like, what's this poem about Pio about? And he's like, oh, his father knew Pio. And I'm like, whoa. I was like, and Enzo, who was Franco's son, his English is not very good. He's very hard to understand. And I'm like, back that up. I just heard Padre Pio, and he's like, yeah, they had known each other before he was stigmatized. They were friends, I guess. They were buddies. They probably went to church together. There was no one in my family that was a priest back then. Now there is. I have a cousin who's a priest, but back in the day, I don't think there were any priests. So this guy just knew Padre Pio before he was Father Pio. He was just probably a guy living in the village, and he became a priest. And they became friends. And then when Padre Pio received the Stigmata, they continued to be friends. And he continued to go to his church and listen to his homilies. Because Padre Pio didn't die until like 1943. So we're not going back that far here. Padre Pio was not just a stigmatist. He received the Stigmata in both of his hands. Not in the feet, not in the chest, just both of his hands, as far as I know. And he used to wear gloves whenever he was out to cover up the wounds, because the wounds never healed. They constantly bled, not gushing, but they were always weeping blood. And he would wear gloves, like these fingerless gloves, those badass fingerless gloves, to kind of cover the blood. And Pio, he could perform, it was said, he could perform miracles, he could heal people. And he is he's the only saint I've ever heard of that could bilocate while they were alive, which is pretty interesting. I don't know why him, but I've heard of people, when they're dead or entities bilocating. What I'm saying?
What does that mean exactly, to bilocate?
Being in the two different places at the same time.
Like if I'm here and you're there, he can bilocate. We would both think that he was physically in the room with each one of us. Okay. Right.
And he was living, so he could be doing his homily and right now in Italy, and then he could be all of a sudden in my living room and in your living room physically. And he could do that.
How many times was he said to have done this? And for
I have no idea. I don't know. I think people called upon him mostly for aid. He was known for healing the sick. That's what he was known for, healing the sick. And that's what he did. That's primarily what he did. He just healed the sick.
So if we can go back to kind of Stigmata 101, as far as Padre Pio goes himself, he was doing the Lord's work and he's doing his priestly work, right? So why did he receive stigmata?
It's considered a gift, really, to be stigmatized. It's a gift. This is what the Lord endured, and now you get to endure it. It's a blessing to be. It's not a curse at all. It's an absolute blessing to have the stigmata, according to the Catholic Church, because it's you receiving the wounds of Christ. And it means that you, in some way, shape, or form, are holy enough to receive that gift.
Right. And if you are stigmatized, for most people that are, do these wounds usually last the rest of their living days?
No, they're all different. Sometimes people's go away. Sometimes people go away in less than a day. Sometimes people have all the stigmata wounds, even the chest wound, which is like a big gushing chest wound.
I was going to say, that's a pretty grave wound to be
walking
around
with that, patting that thing down, and sometimes it lasts their whole life. How many stigmata? I think there's been something like 60 stigmatists.
Which isn't that many, considering
right.
all the days of written word and stories passed down and such, right? That's pretty incredible. 60.
And I think, and I think they're all saints. I think they're all saints.
Did they all have healing powers to heal others?
I think they did, yeah.
Wow.
I think they did, or they had some type of a power that Jesus had. Did
they have to lay hands on the person? Did they have to be in the room with the person? Or is that where the ability to bilocate comes in very handy?
I think that's where the ability to bilocate comes in, because it was said that Pio had to lay his hands on them.
Wow.
Which was, I don't know if that's true for all stigmatists, but for Pio it was true. He had to lay his hands on you. That's interesting. Yeah, a whole nother topic, but that's where they get apostolic succession from. In the Catholic Church, lots of people talk about apostolic succession and laying on of the hands, and sometimes you'll hear people say that their priest is related to the original disciples of Christ, and you're like, that doesn't make sense, But apparently, through the laying on of hands, throughout the last 2,000 years, everyone who's become a priest has been touched by the disciples. Like one disciple touches the other, and then whoever he brings up as a priest, he lays his hands on them, and whoever he bring up, so it is a continuum, and it's called apostolic succession. But there is an element of Catholicism of laying on of the hands, which it's not a big one. It's bigger in other religions, but it's in Catholicism as well.
Are there any stigmatists alive now? And if not, when was the most recent one?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Pio died in 43. I don't know when the last one was. Crapola. That stinks. I would love to know that right this second. I would love to know that.
See, but that's probably, it seems like the way the world is now, maybe that's something that is kept a little bit more on the down low.
Right. Would you even know?
Than it was. Yeah. I just wonder, maybe in the old world and around Rome or something like that, maybe there is, but maybe it's kept very quiet.
Right.
Which is sad, because it would be an amazing thing. Something that a lot of people, it would bring a lot of joy to a lot of people. Someone that can heal others, and that would be very nice. But there are others that would want to quiet that very quickly. So
exactly, and that's where a lot of the fear comes from.
Yeah.
I don't, like I said, we've talked about this a few times now, Shannon. It's like what the Catholic Church allows and what it doesn't. Why hide the fact that demons are real? Why hide the fact that stigmatists can do this, that, and the other thing? And I think some of it is that's just old arcane knowledge, or that's just nonsense, or it's fantasy, and it's this and it's that. But when you talk to someone, like I talked to Father G, like, I'm talking to this guy, and, he gave me a very specific time to call him. He says, you got to call me between, I think it was 6 and 7, your time. He's like, that's when I do my mother's dialysis. And I'm like, okay. And, I called him up, and, I don't know. I just, how do you not believe that guy? Why would that guy lie to me? Why is that guy making up a story?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
What's his incentive? What is his anything? Like, I know, like that I said that I've, did he make any money off the movie? Did he make any money off the books? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Because, people hear stuff, they want to make a movie about it. He wouldn't make any money at all. He's a priest. He can't take money. You know what I'm saying? He's not making money. If you think that Father G's making money off this, you're wrong. He took a vow of poverty. So it's just sitting somewhere, or he gave it away somewhere. How many people does he talk to about this stuff? And currently he runs a youth ministry where he teaches them about possession, a youth ministry. And at first I was like, a youth ministry? I'm like, why in God's earth would you be talking to 11th grader and 12th graders, people coming of age, graduating high school, about the evils of possession? But then I thought, it makes perfect sense. You're getting out of high school, you're hitting adulthood, and you're about to make decisions, adult decisions,
Right.
And temptation is there, and sin is there, and this is the result of sin. And if you don't believe me, well, then check some of this stuff out.
You want to
I'm
puke
saying?
some nails or some black toads?
Right,
There
you
you
wanna throw up
go.
Right. You want to vomit up a black toad that turns to ash? Go ahead and play with a Ouija board. See what happens.
Right.
Don't say I didn't tell you. But back to Padre Pio. When he passed, he gave my great uncle a pair of his gloves, and they were covered in his blood. And he just gave them to him as a gift. And when my great uncle passed, he gave them to his sister. And when his sister passed, she gave them one to each son. So the gloves, currently in Italy, they're in my family's possession. And so they would be about Enzo's age. Enzo's about, I want to say, in his late 40s. So they're Enzo's cousins, and that's why I started that whole GoFundMe to Italy, to go to Rome. But I just took that off the board really quick, because, who the hell's on GoFundMe? Oh, I need money so I can go see if Padre Pio's gloves. Who's gonna give money to that? Nobody. So I'm just like, you know what? I'll just pay for it myself someday.
I mean, that may not be true, because it's
maybe
an incredible relic.
It's a class 1 relic, and to be in the Catholic world, all you have to do is touch it to something, and that whatever you touch it to becomes a class 2 relic, and that's just how it works.
Oh.
And now, so if you had a crucifix, for example, and you just had a regular crucifix that you bought at a store, and maybe you touched it, you were, I don't know, you tried using it because you thought your house was haunted, it wouldn't do anything. It's got to be blessed. I'm not saying it has to be touched by a class 1 relic, but it has to be blessed, just like holy water. A priest can take tap water and he can bless it and make holy water. Well, these gloves can do the same thing, which is kind of amazing, really. They're considered, relics of the church. And I don't even know if, the church knows my family has them or cares.
I mean, would it be bad if they knew that they had them? Would they want them
I don't
back?
know.
Or...
I really don't know. I mean, I don't know. Would they just send out the church mafia to go get them?
I'm sure that is a thing, probably.
I am sure that is the thing too.
But you have confirmation that this person has this glove and that person has that glove.
Yes.
For a fact.
Two brothers.
That's incredible. Where are they? I mean, I don't know how specific.
They're in Rome.
I
just don't know what specifically in Rome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in. Well, no. I think they're both in Rome. Yeah, because Enzo lives in Rome. He's a jeweler, and I think they all kind of live in Rome and kind of live. They're all really well-to-do people. They're not like super wealthy
Right.
because Rome is very expensive to live in.
But they're doing okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah.
So they know what they have, though, with these gloves. All right, so I assume they're probably being very well hidden and safe and taken care of, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hate to show up in Rome and be like, "Hey, can I see Padre Pio's gloves?" And they'd be like, "Oh, hold on, one sec."
They're all back in the old plastic bag in the garden.
He puts a joint out in the ashtray. He's like, "Whoa,
Right.
man, what's up?" You mean that blood with all the glove? It's somewhere underneath all my Garfield comics.
Cleaned the bathroom with it last week, so could be anywhere.
Hold on, I got all these editions of The Far Side I gotta throw away.
Oh God, I have them all right behind me right here. I love The Far Side.
Gary
I have the whole galleries, right?
They're the best.
Oh my God. But I have on my wall, in fact, I don't know if you saw the picture, but I have, it's very fitting for our conversation. I can send you the picture after. I'm going to send it to you. In fact, I'll text it to you. But it's The Far Side where there's no caption needed. But it's a picture of there's 3 devils in hell and they're sitting inside their office. And I think you know which one I'm talking about. And on their desk, there's a suggestion box and they're opening the suggestions from hell, and you can see the souls outside of the door, and there's flames and the shadows, and it's the tortured souls in hell. And they have the suggestion box out, and they're reading one of the suggestions and just laughing their ass off. One guy's about to slap his knee, right? Like eyes closed, the devils are laughing. So anyhow, yes, The Far Side is amazing. Gary Larson, dude.
Oh,
my favorites.
He was one of my. I think he was a Rhode Island guy.
I think so. I think so.
He one of my favorites.
You New Englanders, Stephen King, Gary Larson,
right?
Jon-Paul Capece. Boom.
One of my favorites is I'm sure you've seen it. The guy's in a dog kennel, and there's a giant squid in one of the dog kennels. And then he's like, "Oh, no, wait, it's that one down there." And then there's another giant squid at the end of the dog kennel. He walks in and there's a giant squid. Oh, there it is. Oh, no, wait. It's the other one.
Squid. Of course, right.
I love that friggin' one. Oh, man. But,
want...
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm stepping all over you.
No, we were both doing it. I just, and not to poke fun at your family, I'm sure they're taking it very seriously. You know how I always do the comic relief. I hope that people realize that's a huge deal that your family is in possession of Padre Pio's gloves. No, not your family, just the listener. That's why we wanted to make sure that we brought that up, because if you can get out to Rome and, do you mind sharing what's the goal? Okay, yeah, it is to possibly take possession of one of these. Yeah,
yeah. Well, that's funny because that's what the father asked me. He's like, "Why do you want to see it so bad?" I'm just like, I want to hold it. I want to see if it brings me any closer to God. I just want to hold it. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, from a guy like that, and his blood is still on them.
That's what I'm saying.
That is really, it's got to be significant.
And can I take it home? Can I have one? I mean, there's 2.
Right?
Can I get the lazy brother to give me one? I mean, I don't know, but come on, I'm a theologian. Come on, let me come up there. Yeah. And I mean, Enzo has been begging me to go up there and stay with him. Yeah. And all I need to pay for is a flight, and I'll be able to do that soon. Very
expensive. It's not some small fee, but yeah, right. I do hope that gets to happen for you soon, because I know it's important.
Yeah, and he'll let me. I mean, when my brother was up there for his honeymoon with his first wife, Enzo cleared his kid's bedroom out just so my brother could sleep in there, and he made his kids sleep in the couches outside of the
kids,
boxes
get
of
out
furniture.
Back.
Yeah. He actually yelled at my brother because my brother had a hotel for the last night. He was like, "No."
Offended, right? Your family, you stay here.
And my brother's like, "It's kind of my honeymoon, dude."
You're like, wink, wink. He's
wink,
like, "No,
wink.
You stay here."
Amore.
We have earplugs.
Right. No, we have family.
Oh,
you stay.
Man,
yeah,
that's amazing. That sounds like a very Italian thing, right?
Right.
Hotel? What the hell are you saying?
You need the hotel. You don't need to hide this from us.
We family, eh? That was terrible. I just turned it into a Canadian thing. Sorry. I don't know.
No.
I'm the worst with that, see?
I love it. Now, there is, actually, because we always do this. We go to like 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Uh-huh.
But, there is something that I did not talk about. I know I talked about the ranking of angels on an episode.
Mm-hmm.
We went through that whole thing about the seraphim, the cherubim, the thrones, and all that stuff. So I did a little digging deeper on that, and I wanted to share that with you because I had always thought, and I think some people had always had this idea that demons were just angels, like these commonplace angels, right? And I know I had talked to you earlier in the show that when a demon says, "Oh, my name is Leviathan," it's not necessarily Leviathan. It's kind of be like, one of our troops saying, I'm an American troop. You know what I'm saying? He won't say,
yeah.
I'm Bill, I'm an American troop. But, so I went and I kind of went back through the story again. And I started to realize that these demons, right, were really, really high order demons. Like, I had no idea of this. So we talked about seraphim, right, being at the top of the list of angels, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was 3 rankings of 3: seraphim, cherubim, thrones, dominions, principalities, powers, virtues, archangels, and angels. Well, Satan is Satan, and he's doing his thing, and he's says, "I'm out of here," and a lot of people think that Satan was not necessarily evil. He became evil because of what he was doing to people. It was a faculty that was part of his being. The book of Job and all that stuff. Maybe he didn't want to do that stuff, but God was just like, you got to do this. The first demons to go were this seraphim. We're talking top tier angels here, which blew my mind. And the first one is Lucifer, Beelzebub, and Leviathan. They are all seraphim. 1, 2, 3. And they take with them a whole host of other seraphim with them. So we're not just talking about like the angels here. We're talking about top level angels. Giant beings with immense power and ability to traverse time and space and ancient knowledge, and it's amazing. And I guess Saint Michael the Archangel was the first one to say no in that order. It was Lucifer, Beelzebub, Leviathan, and then Michael says no. That's why Michael has so much power over Satan. I guess he was the one that kind of cut it off at the wrist, so to speak. But it's interesting to note that in that category as well of seraphim is Asmodeus. He's also a seraphim. And I think this is great because I've been meaning to put some of this up on my Facebook page as, because we talked about how some demon names are just flat out made up, right? When a lot of these are verified through primary source work, whether it be through, biblical texts, the apocryphal texts, Book of Enoch, Nag Hammadi Library, all sorts of stuff like that. These things are confirmed. I know the Book of Enoch is one of Anton LaVey's books of necessary reading. But, yeah, so, when you think of, I wanted to give you this little rundown of some actual, Catholic confirmed demons and their ranks. And they hold these ranks today. Even though they're not in heaven, they're down here with us, they're still seraphim, So I said, yeah, Lucifer, Beelzebub, Leviathan, Asmodeus, they're all still seraphim. Cherubim, you have Balbereth, and he is a demon that likes to force people to commit homicide. So he's not a very good one. We have some thrones. We have Vereen, Gressel, my favorite name.
Gressel, yeah, that's badass.
Yeah. Sonelion is a throne. We also have, from From the powers, we have I think it's Cairo, Cordovian. From the dominions, we have Olette. From the principalities, we have Verrier. From the virtues, we have Belial, which Belial gets a lot of like press. I don't know why, but people love
that's
Belial.
Interesting. Is it just the way it rolls off your tongue, or why does it get so much press?
I don't know. People love Belial. I think it might be because he was also he might have been a pagan god, or associated with a pagan god. But Belial's main function is basically to get women to dress pretty to tempt men.
Whoa, see, that'll handle business. Yeah,
Right.
That's killing two birds with one stone right there.
Maybe that's why he's so popular. You know? Maybe that's why everyone's making offerings to Belial, you know? Hey, Belial.
That's what it is.
That's probably what it is. Belial, make my wife wear something cute tonight.
Yeah.
Then we have archangels. We have Olivier, who is an extremely cruel archangel. And we also have some angels, too. Now, we have this one angel, and this is awesome when I read this. This angel named Aliard. You know, they talk about these things like, Verrier, he tempts people against this, against obedience. And, Beelzebub, Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, right? Okay, sure, right? Leviathan, the ringleader of heretics, Asmodeus, still a seraphim to this day. How interesting is that? Asmodeus, he is still a seraphim in heaven today, but he burns with hate, not with goodness. That's just so crazy to me, some of this like mythology. But there's this one angel in particular, as I'm scouring through the list, right? And it's Aliard. And it says underneath, his description, it says, in another body. And I'm like, whoa. Whoa. Wait a minute. What? And I'm checking it out, and I'm looking through my other books, Aliard, and it says, in another body. And I'm like, where is this? Sister Madeline. That's where this demon is. I don't know what, first name, last names don't matter when you're a nun, but there's a Sister Madeline out there, and Aliard has possessed her. Seems like a case of integration, because it's not like that pipeline thing we were talking about, how a demon is not in you, it reacts through the pipeline and it possesses you. And that's why so many demons refer to themselves as, the old biblical story, we are legion. Because they can possess several different people at the same time through these pipelines. You can think of them as wires if you want. But this particular angel, Aliard, is in the body of Sister Madeline. And I thought that was so freaking wild to me that, where is she? Are they keeping tabs on her? I hope.
Yeah, so hopefully someone's watching out. Does that mean, is that some code word that all Madelines could have a potential problem if they're a sister, or do they have to be a sister, or I don't know. I'm probably reading too deep into that, but is it meant for just one person, just one Madeline?
No, I think this one is meant just for this particular. Well, I'm sure there's many Sister Madelines out there, but I'm sure that in the context they were speaking in to this particular demon, or like I said, no, because it sounded like integration. If it's saying like this book was written a long time ago, so
right.
At the time that this book was written, this demon was it was possessing a nun. So how they got that information, I have no friggin' idea. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh well, this one's Belial makes women dress up sexy, and Olivier is cruelty, and he makes people write bad poetry, and Aliard, he's in Sister Madeline now. So I mean, I can see how some of it sounds hokey and stuff too, but some of it is like, when after you talk to people like Father G, you're like, is that real? I mean, I might have to ask him about that, but he'll probably be like, yeah, that's probably doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying?
But one thing can lead to another. There's
absolutely.
always one string leads to the next, and the threads follow another thread, and it's all connected somehow. So maybe it's not as. I mean, we chuckle at some of the things, but it may not be that funny, right? Because as hokey as it sounds, there might be actually someone that did suffer or will suffer what is talked about.
Exactly. And yeah, you're right. And it's one of those things where, and I told this, I talked to this about, I don't know, this has been this couple contacting me from Maine, and they have some really, really crazy stuff going on in their house right now. The guy has awoken to see shadow figures in his house. He saw a shadow figure like leaning over his wife, like right in her face. And his wife was fast asleep, and he was just pinned to his bed watching it. And it like looked at him and looked back down at her in a menacing way. And he couldn't move to wake her up. And it was just like staring at her.
It's interacting while he's awake. It knows that he's awake. It looks at him and it looks back at the wife who's fast asleep.
Like it's going to take a bite out of her or something,
that is awful.
We're talking multiple,
No, not in the house. Stop. Get the hell out of the house.
Well, he also told me about this really, really, I mean, they were doing some remodeling. When you're doing remodeling, you put up that plastic sheeting, like you're putting in a new window or something. You put up that plastic sheeting, and it's really, 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 really tight, that plastic sheeting. And you put it up on both sides so that it's insulated. And they were remodeling some sections of the house, and some of that stuff was up on the walls. And he said at one point he was sitting there in the room next to this stuff, and he said there were no wind gusts or anything. Not that a wind gust can move that stuff, because I've worked with that stuff in the past. He said it just bulged outward like a balloon, like it just like inflated, like something like it was gonna pop, and then it slowly deflated.
From the wall.
From the wall. I'm like, what is this? What is going on? So I told him that I would go down there and I would say some deliverance prayers with him, and I'm waiting to hear back from him. Him and his wife wrote me a timeline. They wrote me a narrative, which is really cool, of when they started experiencing things, what they experienced specifically. And they got turned down by someone to bless the house. Oh. And it wasn't a Catholic priest. It was like a Protestant priest or something. And, I was like, look, if you pay my gas, I'll come up there and I'll like say a few Hail Marys. I have holy water. I'm not a priest, but
you're
anyone,
like, I know some things.
Well, anyone can deliver deliverance prayers. I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, but anyone can perform deliverance prayers. They teach them to lay people. They're a way to kind of, self-medicate in a way. You say deliverance prayers on yourself. And anyone can do these things. And, I told him, I said, look, I'll go through your house. I have some holy water. I'll say a few Hail Marys, at each threshold. I'll make a little sign of the cross with the holy water on the doors. We can say the litany. We can say the rosary together. We can do some of these things if you want. I'm not going to charge you. Just, fill up my gas tank so I can get up there.
How did they find you?
I think through the email. They sent me through Facebook. They sent me the thing through Facebook. And are there kids in the house? Yeah, there are.
Or are they saying that the kids are involved at all or affected?
My God, is that my dog barking? I put him through 2 doors.
Found some socks.
Oh man, that dog.
That's okay.
Anyway, back to your original question. Are there kids involved? Yeah, they do have children. I don't know how involved the spirits have been with the children, but I think Jeremy, had said it. Once they start getting into your kids, it's like a whole nother category.
Yeah, I think they would be calling you a lot sooner or contacting you sooner.
Right, and they haven't really responded. Like, yeah, come on down, and and I told them, I'm like, look, I don't you don't have to let me stay in your house. I'm not saying, invite me over, some weird, creepy theologian to sleep in your house. You can rent me a hotel room and pay for my gas, and I'll say a few Hail Marys and do a deliverance prayer and leave. And, pour some kosher salt behind me when I leave, and then don't sweep it up until the morning. and see what happens. I mean, that's all it might take, and for the entity to leave. If
you do it
drag
early
it with
enough,
me.
right? But if they keep letting it go, and then it
Well,
does
that's what
attach
I'm
to a
trying-
child,
right. Exactly.
Yeah, you would think that. Well, then you're talking about a whole nother level of a problem.
Because that's what I was trying to tell him as we were going over earlier. I was telling him, I was like, look, you're at the point where you're at oppression, if not obsession. Because if you're really like obsessing about this stuff and writing me about this stuff, I mean, you definitely there's pushing and there's scratching sensations and there's burn marks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're on their way. You know what I'm saying? So
they have burn marks.
I don't know if it was burn marks or scratches or numbers or letters, but there was some kind of there's something going on there. There's some, or shoving. Maybe it was just shoving or bumping and things like that. But at that level of that's oppression. You know what I'm saying? That's like 2 steps away from involuntary possession. And if you don't intervene at that point, then you might get stuck in a situation where you need to go for an exorcism and like the whole process that Father G, this isn't just something where they just say, oh, I need a possession. I mean, I need an exorcism. Come by my address. This is something where you need an entire team of people in place. You have
to get it approved, which is a super long process.
Exactly, right? And that's just in the United States. Actually, they need to sign like a document that says like I allow this to happen, right. And if I die, I die. But you need to have a full psychological workup done. You need to have a full physical workup done. Sometimes, if there's anything that's off, you need to do it again. I've heard of people seeing multiple psychiatrists before they can even get in to see an exorcist. And then at that point, the exorcist has to discern whether or not, you're possessed.
Wow. So multiple levels of paperwork and approval and...
absolutely. Yeah. And this stuff is documented, right? This stuff is documented somewhere. So I'm thinking to myself, and it's funny because Father G's, one of his worst fears, according to the book, was discernment. He was terrified that he was going to, do an exorcism on someone who didn't need one, and do further damage to, maybe multiple personality disorder or something like that, and he was terrified of that. So he takes extra precautions when doing exorcisms. Right. But it's that type of like, I don't even know what you call it, like logistics. You know what I'm saying? That type of logistical stuff. I mean, you wouldn't be doing that stuff and documenting it and like making these records unless it was important, right? So it has to be important. If you're going through all this steps and you're putting exorcists in everyone's backyards and you're keeping everyone hush hush, then that it has to be important. There's got to be some significance to it. There has to be. Why would they be keeping it such a secret? Sometimes I feel like David Paulides when I'm talking about this stuff. It's like I almost want to file a Freedom of Information Act and see if like the Vatican will give up how many exorcisms they did last year. You know what I'm saying? But like that won't work over there. So maybe I can do it in a state. Maybe I can do it in Rhode Island. How many Vatican sanctioned exorcisms were completed in Rhode Island over the past 20 years? Maybe I can get a number. I'd love to do something like that, but I don't think they would let me have it. I really don't. I don't know.
I mean, if the family in Maine was listening, I guess the message would be, what's it going to hurt to have somebody come over and give one of these deliverance prayers? There's nothing it's going to harm if this is something that is completely separate of what we're talking about. It's not going to hurt anything. So.
Well, that's the thing too. I mean, we talk like poltergeist, demonic siege, same thing. In my opinion. So yeah, what's it going to hurt? Even if there's nothing going on, I go around and I do this and do that. The worst thing you're going to have to do in the morning is sweep some kosher salt up off the floor.
I have a question though, because you just mentioned poltergeist. Do they have a daughter within the puberty age? Because you hear of things happening in the home because of hormones, and I know we've brought that up before. Is there any, and that might be too personal to bring up for that family. I don't want to get any territory that's not appropriate for the family.
But I forgot, to be honest with you. I focused on some of the major points that they were talking about. So I actually don't know, but I'm going to go back through and read the timeline, and I'll email you because, I'd like to, I told them, like, if this is something you want to do, then I'd like to record it. We don't necessarily have to bust out the camcorder or anything.
Right.
We can just like record, voices, put the iPhone on the table and hit record and just see what happens. But I don't know how many children they have or what their ages are or anything like that. I just kind of gave the time. I mean, it's like they sent me like 4 or 5 pages of information.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, and this is like, this isn't the first time someone has sent me stuff like this.
4 or 5 pages, and as far as you know, they really haven't had anyone come in to even try anything. They've
had someone blow them off, basically. Yeah, I don't know what branch. I
mean, maybe that was enough to they're under the assumption that they'll get blown off by everyone, or I mean, maybe. It seems like that much is going on. 4 or 5 pages full that you would want to kind of exhaust all options at this point. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not living through that, but
thank God. I mean, I would think, that, you would want to, maybe, explore different types of options.
Yeah.
See what's out there, see what's available, and like I said, maybe they feel they need a priest, but going through, a regular, maybe they just need a priest to do like a blessing. And just go through and bless the house. And maybe that's all it needs, So, I really can't tell. But I just want to get down there and I want to get into the mix. And I don't know. I just want to get into the mix a little bit and see what it's like. Because I've never seen books flying off shelves or anything like that.
Neither have I. I would love to accompany you. I will be your sidekick, your silent sidekick if I have to be. Yeah, I've said that many times. I'm like, I would love to just have another experience. I need another confirmation experience. I've already had a confirmation experience, but it was so long ago that, I lit the fire, but I'm kind of like, gosh, I'd really love to see something like that. But I've said it many times. I'm like,
you're due.
Never in the house. Never in the... It would suck to have that at your own house, I think. I do think that because sleep is a very valuable thing to us as human beings. We are not vampires, which that might be a good segue to the vampire folklore. But we do need sleep, and we are not vampiric and immortal. So to have, you wake up and you see what you think is a shadow person, and it's checking your wife out, and then it actually can interact by turning its head to look at you and then look away. That seems like more than the old hag syndrome or something to me, especially when they have 5 more pages of other things going on. So some things can be explained away, but then when it's all, the encompassing evidence is there, then you go, well, I don't know, that seems like more than sleep paralysis and maybe even a pubescent teen to me, possibly. So
yeah, I mean, if you have multiple things going on in one house, it could be that, it could be sleep paralysis and a pubescent teen, and maybe something else. Maybe their house is someplace where it used to be sacred or something like that.
Right, it could be the Poltergeist movie situation, built on an old graveyard. Totally, they just moved the headstones. You never know. That's true. It could be multiple situations, but
I mean, in the book I was just reading, they were talking about how this woman could not sell her house because of a curse, and like I said, curses are particularly difficult to get rid of because if you don't get rid of the root of the curse, you don't get rid of the curse. I mean, it's as simple as that.
And they literally get passed on, right? Like if you had a kid and you had a curse on you 10 years prior, it's going to get passed on, right?
I would think so. If it was one of those things where it was a curse to be passed on, because you can curse places, things, objects, people. I've heard all sorts of stories on podcasts of people being cursed. And in this book that I just read too, they were talking about this woman who was trying to sell her house, and people loved it, and they loved the price, and they would leave, and they would never call her again. And I think she eventually went to a priest and to have it blessed. And the priest was like, "There's something off about this house." And they got in contact with the previous owner, who was an artist. And he was an artist, and he was somewhat of, I don't want to say Satanist, because that's kind of a new overused word, but he was, I guess he had a kind of a morbid curiosity with Satan. And what he did was paint a satanic image, and he put it in one of the walls of the house.
Oh, shit.
Yep, and he left it there. He just drywalled over it. And then he told them where it was, and they broke it down. They found this horrific painting of a demon, and they burned it, and the house got like 4 offers on it the next day.
Isn't that is so terrifying that something so simple can be that powerful? I
know. It's the curses. And this is what Thomas Aquinas, and the Summa Theologica, I mean, like I said, I'm terrible with dates, but he always said it's intentions. Everything in religion, I can say, comes to intentions. What are your intentions? Are you intending to do good? Or are you intending to do evil? What are your intentions? And by that's what moral theology is all about. It's your intentions. It's not the outcome necessarily. The outcome of anything can be bad. Mm-hmm. I can set out right now with a bag full of old clothes and intend to bring it to the Salvation Army, but on the way I could accidentally run over my neighbor's kid, I don't know. Would that be a bad thing? Maybe not. We're talking intentions. That wasn't my intention to run over the neighbor's kid. It was my intention to bring a bag of clothes to the Goodwill. The interconnection of people on the planet, and the interconnection of morality and good and evil is such a friggin' puzzle. That I don't even know how some of these guys and some of these priests, I mean, all they do is study. That's all they do. Guys like Father G and his mentor, Father C, they read. That's all they do is read. And read ancient books and Latin books and Italian books and Greek books and, Jewish texts. And it's just, they just keep going back and back and back. And then they go forward again and they find an answer and they get 3 more questions from it. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly the feeling.
I mean, it's
that.
like your podcast. Your podcast is the same thing, Shannon. And theology and philosophy is the same thing. And I think all these great podcasts are. And there's so many of them coming out now. And I can't help but notice, and maybe it's just me, and maybe it's just me overthinking, like, my own podcast coming out, that, like, there seems to be a lot going on about people talking about demonic entities. It just seems to be like a lot of people are talking about it now, or they're relating to it in a different way. And, and I don't know, I just feel like it's time, it's time to, like, talk about it realistically.
Yes, and in fact, it's interesting you bring that up, because lately I've been listening to a lot of Clyde Lewis, his Ground Zero.
Oh, okay.
And I think this was a kind of an older archived episode, not too old, still this year, but he was talking about Stranger Things, the show Stranger Things. Have you watched that?
Yes.
Excellent, because I wanted to know if I didn't realize this until I heard this show. I didn't even know. I thought this was a totally made up word and a name, and it doesn't look like it does in the show. But the Demogorgon is actually some sort of a named type of a demon, or a demon itself.
Yep, Demogorgon.
Yeah.
I had it written down. Hold on. Shannon, you're forcing me to bust out the books.
I love it. I think we do this every single time. You're like, hold on, I have a book for this. I know you do. So I'm like, oh, I have to write this down for Jon-Paul tonight. I had it written down. So yeah.
I think it was the one I just went out to the car for. But
nice. I sent out the intent. See.
Where is it?
It was like he was saying it's like a two-headed. The Demogorgon is two-headed. It doesn't really look like it does in the show, which looks more like the petal of a flower with teeth when it's open. But I found that very fascinating. It's different.
It's different than that. I will say that. I think the and I'm sure people will recognize this. I think Stranger Things is based on what happened at the Air Force Base there. You know what I'm talking about.
You mean Montauk?
Yeah, I think it's based on Montauk Chronicles. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems like it is, you know?
Yeah.
It's got these portals and...
You know that stuff went on, hooking people up and brain fries and all horrible things.
Brain fries and this and that. No, you're killing me because it's in the other book.
Oh, it's in the other book. That's all right. Hey, we can save it for edition. What's more in Latin? I always look up the Latin numbers because that's how I name your episode. So this one is Tria. I don't know what 4 is. I'll have to look it up. But hey, we need content for 4. It's fine.
We do, but listen, you're gonna have to wait because I can't.
No, it's fine. Let's save the Demogorgon for next time.
Okay, we will.
Right.
But I just read it, and because it was something interesting to me.
Right, that's cool.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, what is this Demogorgon?" And it was. Sorry, I swore. Anyway,
that's all right. I said earlier it happens.
That you were gonna get screamed at by someone.
It's not the F word. It's not that bad.
Oh, that's true. You can say anything. Although I got a feeling they're going to cut out that segment about the girl vomiting out buckets of what.
Oh, I won't. Mm-hmm. Nope. Part of history. Sorry, folks.
Well, that happened, and that was seen.
Yeah, no, that's staying in, dude. I mean, it grossed me out. I didn't think I was going to be grossed out because you're like, pretty gross. I'm like, nope, bring it on. You're like, here's what it is. I'm like, yep, pretty damn gross. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's horrifying. But anyway, I did start talking to Father G about vampire folklore, and he had no idea that the vampire folklore was so rich in Rhode Island, and it was interesting because he asked me, he said, "Do you believe in vampires?" And I think it was a test. And I was like, no. I was like, what do you mean, like the Hollywood version type stuff? He was like, yeah, vampires. I was like, no, I don't believe in vampires. And I think he was just like testing me, like just to see if I was some like weirdo who was calling him. You know what I'm saying? And I keep saying, you know what I'm saying. I started wearing an elastic band for that, you know.
Did you snap it?
No, I forgot to do this.
You're fine. We all have to test if each other are weirdos. That's how the weirdos roll. But truth is, we're all weirdos because look at what we're talking about. Even Father G, he's the best kind of weirdo. Except he can handle this, and take it to the next level. And
I'll tell you, the one that I was talking to him about Mercy Brown and some of the other ones, and Sarah Tillinghast, and I have some of these on my Facebook page. Rose, the Rose family. But some of these poor young girls were so Rose Hill. That's right, Rose Hill. That's where Sarah Tillinghast. No, Ruth Ellen Rose. That's where she's buried, Rose Hill. But there was like, I don't know. I want to say like 6 or 7 famous for being vampires in Rhode Island, but they were really just buried in the cold months, and they were not buried, but they were entombed in cold months, and that's why everyone thought they were vampires. I guess Mercy's entire family had conducted consumption, which is what nowadays, like Hesse or something. I don't know.
I think so. I'm not sure.
It's not. It's not Hep C. It's I don't know. It's something like bronchitis or something. It's something simple. But there's people used to die of it a lot back then. Someone out there screaming at their microphone or their earbuds.
They always do.
It's typhoid. No,
You're like, God damn you guys! No, you should before you get on.
But her whole family was dying of it, and then she died. But it was like January, so they put her in this tomb, and I have pictures of the tomb on my Facebook page. And they just, because the ground was frozen, so they put her in the tomb. And then her younger brother got sick, and for some reason they thought she was a vampire, because she was the first woman, I guess, to die. And they're like, oh no, she's a vampire. So in, I think, March, when they buried her, they also dug her up a week later. Now, mind you, she had been frozen all winter. She was never buried.
She died in January, but they didn't bury her till March?
Well, they couldn't dig till March.
Oh, right.
So they bury her in March, and then they dig her up a little bit later. She's probably down 2 feet, and the ground is still frozen. So when they cut her open, she's got blood in her liver and her heart. Yeah, because she's thawing out. And that's the way it went in Rhode Island as far as vampires. All these young girls, just died in January and weren't buried until March. Or they dug them up once they buried them because, whatever, they burnt the heart and the liver, and they used the ashes to brew up some brew, and they made the brother drink it, and they told him it would cure him, and the brother died anyway.
Yeah, because guess where they're getting the blood and the tissue? From someone that died of some
rotting corpse.
Freaking disease. Yeah. And you're like, here, drink this. Seriously, guys? Really?
They've been rotting for 3 months.
Oh, God. Can you imagine?
No, but he was pretty fascinated by the vampire folklore, which is, I don't know if maybe he was testing me, maybe he wasn't, maybe he believes in vampires. I should ask him.
I was just gonna say, so he didn't elaborate any on his thoughts on the modern vampire.
He just said, "Do you believe in vampires?" And I said, "No," and that was it. He was like, "Okay."
So something else that I was listening to might have been Clyde again. I love that show lately. I'm really on to Ground Zero. Anyhow, I think it might have been Clyde's show again. That someone was on there talking about how someone in the royal family had lived to the ripe old age of 101 or 102 or something. It's because they would get blood transfusions from young people. And supposedly that at some point, and this may be a much earlier point in history, but that they would go to these third world countries, which I don't know how. I'm not making fun of any country at all. I'm just saying that I don't know how safe that would be. It wouldn't even be safe if you went to downtown Las Vegas. I'm just just saying blood is, it can be an nefarious thing.
You don't just
know why I'm saying
it.
this. Yeah. But they would go to these countries and they would pick out 10 to 15 young people and they would take them and they would never be seen again. And the thought was that they would use these young people to give them blood, and it was basically the fountain of youth, and that is maybe one of the reasons why this royal lived to the ripe old age of 101 or 102 is because there was these young red blood cells running through her veins. So that's quite interesting.
Do you remember the royal's name?
I do not, and I don't even know if that was actually mentioned. I should go back and try to find out so I could cross-reference, but it was a British royal. So basically, the family that is in power right now.
Oh, wow. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Aren't they supposed to be reptoids or something though?
That was mentioned in that same episode. So take it with a grain of salt, right? So I don't know. It was also, I think it was mentioned about Diana's death, right, and that. Yeah. Supposedly before she died, and I hadn't read this, or I don't know if this is true, but that she had mentioned that she felt like they were basically, for lack of a better term, aliens, right? That they were just not of this planet. They were evil, and they're not of this planet, and that she wanted to talk about it, and that's why she was assassinated. So that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
But
That's a whole nother
That's
bag of worms
can
right
of
there.
worms right there, son. Yeah, but
you know what's funny? As you remember, we talked about the demonic tarot cards for a while, and we pulled a card for you, and it didn't seem to make any sense.
right.
I'm trying to remember what card it was that I pulled for you. Do you remember?
I don't.
Because I went back later, and this often happens with tarot, and it makes perfect sense. And I remember reading it on the air, and I was just like, oh, da, 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 da. And you were like, huh. And I was like, huh. And we were like, all right, Q Allen Watts. And that was it.
Right.
But then I went back and read it and, digested it. And it was all about, because I think we asked, why did you see the shadow people? Mm-hmm. And it was all basically this demon's deal was, getting the truth from other men. That was his whole purpose. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. That actually makes a lot of freaking sense. Shannon's show is just about getting to the truth about the paranormal. It's about going into the fray. And like, maybe what she saw is, yeah, it made sense after like a week or two went by, and I was like, I had it written down on my desk, and I looked at it again, and I was like, oh no, wait, this did make sense. I thought that was really cool.
That is cool. I mean, that was the ultimate catalyst. So,
right,
and that's why I definitely do this. It only usually brings more questions, which we were laughing about just a little bit ago. But it doesn't, I don't ever get tired of it.
Yeah. No, I never will get tired of it either unless I get possessed. I don't want to get possessed. But...
Don't do that, dude. I mean, look, you have the cool tattoos now that should aid in preventing such an event.
Maybe.
So, and you have that bad of the bone German Shepherd, which you're training with the socks around the neck. So maybe animals are supposed to be very sensitive to those sorts of things. So if you do go to Rome, you drag something back, you got the glove, whatever it might be.
That's true.
Maybe the
and
dog
I told you know what's funny about dragging things back is I told the people in Maine that I would drag the thing out of the house with me. I said,
Did you?
I told her, I said, if you let me come up there, I'll tell it to come with me. I will, but I don't think
Should you say such a thing?
Well, I don't think it'll follow me all the way to Rhode Island.
But you were the one that said that. Time and distance means nothing to something like that.
But I just learned that.
Oh my gosh.
So maybe
you're like, oopsie.
They're going to send me an email like, oh, we don't need you anymore. Something miraculous happened.
Right? They're like, it's weird. We don't see it. There's nothing going on here. And you're like, cricket. And you're like, I can hear someone in the living room. There's no one home.
Right.
No, that's not going to happen. We need to. It's all about intent, and we got to have positive thinking.
It's all about intent.
You can handle that situation without bringing it home with you.
I can.
You don't need that.
I don't need that. But I would say, once I get it outside the door, you can... Because rituals mean things, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's why the church does it.
Bring it over the threshold.
Bring it over the threshold, put down some kosher salt, and then, it can't get back in.
But if you throw the salt down too early, then it's still just locked in the house. Like, can you undo that and you get rid of this? I mean, how does that work? Do you sweep the salt away and then you go back in the house and do it, bring it back out? Okay. That's interesting.
Because I think it was in Dr. Faustus or I get them confused all the time. The book Dr. Faustus and King Solomon. King Solomon was known for summoning demons to do his bidding.
Interesting.
And I think he had a staff or a wand of sorts that he used to command demons. But he used to, I think he either stood in a pentagram or a hexagram or summon them in a pentagram or a hexagram.
Oh,
and I don't know the difference. I think there's probably some witch out there screaming at me. I don't know the difference between a hexagram and a pentagram.
I don't either.
I think it's probably hex is 8 sides, so a pentagram is 5 sides, maybe. I don't know.
I guess it's good that we don't know. I don't know.
But he used to summon demons, and that's how he amassed some of his wealth but because he had this cane, they would kind of do whatever he wanted them to do, and all that whole kind of story has been lost in time. And that's where the Apocrypha comes out, because none of the stuff that I'm talking about really is in. I mean, they have references in the Bible to, Jesus being the first exorcist, and because he was Jesus, he could just say, get out, and they would go, and he passed that along to all of his apostles, so they were all exorcists as well. But when you I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. That sucked me as your train of thought.
That's all right. That's how we roll. We go down all these little rabbit holes, and I'm like, I don't know where I was going with that, but all that just came out of my mouth. I'm sorry. After Jesus died, I am not schooled on like the Bible, and
right. That's right. That's
who was the first person to receive the stigmata after
he died?
Yeah.
Wow, that is a good question.
I know, right? I have no.
I know the first person to see him was Mary Magdalene.
Right.
But the first person to receive the stigmata after he died, that's a wicked good question. I would have to look at
that's okay. But
list of stigmatists. That's really good.
That person had the same powers that Padre Pio had, right? In the 40s.
Right.
It crossed all that time. It was always the same for someone that receives stigmata. Interesting. Very interesting.
Right. I mean, it could have been one of the apostles. I vaguely remember hearing that. Yeah, I vaguely remember hearing that one of the apostles was stigmatized. Although I don't know which one exactly. Definitely wasn't John, although it could have been. But the stigmata victim. I don't know. I got 1182, 1347. They seem to happen a lot in the Middle Ages. I don't see many. St. Francis of Assisi in 1122 is the earliest one I see.
Wow.
Yeah, and then Pio. They have him here dying in 68. Then I have Latuco Suduc, born in 71. Apparently he is alive today. There is one alive.
Oh, in 1971.
Yeah, born in 71. So
what's his name?
Latuco Zaduc, but it begins with a Z.
Oh.
Zlatoukosudac.
Wow.
Latuco Suduc, born in 1971. So what is he, 9 years older than us? And he's got the stigmata.
Wow. If that guy is out there, or if anybody knows him.
Want to come on the show?
Goodness me, are you kidding? Thank you for looking that up, Jon-Paul. Holy cow.
Yeah, it says that some believe, blood coming from the wounds, blood from Jesus Christ.
Which wounds does he have? Does it say?
It doesn't say which one that he has.
Okay.
Let's say it's real fact. There's no evidence of the blood, to my knowledge, has been tested in a medical laboratory. Actually, I do know of a priest at PC who told us a story of a host. The little things you eat, the little crackers you eat.
Mm-hmm.
When they give you the Eucharist. Apparently, the what's that, transfiguration? It's called, where that's actually Christ's body, and that process is called transfiguration. Well, to discard a host, like if you drop it on the ground and someone like says, "Oh, I'm not going to eat that." 5-second rule. Oh no, I don't want to eat that. You don't just throw it in the garbage. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to dissolve it in, I think, either wine or holy water. And then I think once it's completely dissolved, I think you can dump it. I think. But there was a priest of ours we had at PC when I was a grad student who told us a story of a piece of the Eucharist that had been discarded. was like out on the church stairs, and the priest was like, "Oh my God, who left this here?" And he picked it up and he brought it inside, and he put it in a glass of water, and then he blessed the glass of water. And then I remember them taking it to the local college. I forget what state this was in, but they took it to the college. Because in the morning when he had come back, it didn't dissolve. It was like still there, but it was like it didn't look like the host. So they had this like it looked like almost like a piece of skin, like a very thin layer of skin. And they were like, "Huh, did that dissolve or not?" And they pulled it apart and they looked at it under an electron microscope, and it turned out to be skin cells.
Oh my God. What?
Not just skin cells, but cardiac skin cells. It was actually from the heart.
I just got chills. Oh.
I know, huh?
Oh. Seriously?
Yeah, this is what
my gosh.
And this guy has a PhD from Cambridge and a PhD from Catholic U.
Not the kind of guy just to be throwing around stories like that.
I don't think so. I mean,
cardiac cells.
Yeah, of all things, his heart.
Wow.
I mean, so when it's like, I don't know, when I start talking about this stuff and I start reading about this stuff and I start talking to the actual people who may have seen some of this stuff. I mean, Father G, when he did his first Exorcist, it was like very monotonous. Nothing was going on. They just kept showing up. He didn't know if they were faking it. Blah blah blah. This is all in the book. Until one day, the woman's face, her muscles changed so much it made her look like a snake. And he said her tongue kept snapping out of her mouth, and I'm like, what? I'm like, this is like, as far as this guy knows, he's just having a conversation with me.
Right.
This guy in Rhode Island was just like, oh, I got a master's degree, want to chat?
Right.
Just about like, theology. And, like, why I don't understand why he would, like, and this is the same question I keep coming up with over and over and over and over again. And I mentioned this to Jeremy on Deviatus, when he was talking about seeing that shadow on the lamp and he was like driving his car.
Yeah.
What a terrifying story that is.
Yeah, what
and
I'm sorry, I'm so good about I mentioned your previous episodes, but by God, he was on a previous episode of ITF, and I apologize, Jeremy. I don't, unless I pull it up on my phone while you're talking, I'll do that so I can say, hey, go back and listen to Jeremy on my show too. And do you know the number of the episode that you were on? Because I wanted to link that for
I was
Jeremy's
on 84 and 89, I think.
Oh, no, for his show.
Oh, for his show, I think I was on 28, 29, or 30, maybe.
Okay, I'll look that up. That gets
I can't tell you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Continue.
I can't reach my phone, but I keep coming to the same thing. That like people are throwing up toads and they're turning into ash. People are seeing shadow figures on light poles during the day. People are seeing them at night, staring over their wives. People are vomiting up nails. People are doing all sorts of levitating off beds, experiencing poltergeist activity. Or they're just like, I don't know, what did his doctor say? It was lack of sleep.
Yeah, I do remember him saying that.
Crazy.
Yeah, lack
and
of sleep.
I'm thinking to myself, like, really? That's it. That's it. That's your choice. Those are your choices. You were either, tired, and I've been tired. I'm tired right now. I'm tired all the time. My job sucks right now. I don't get very much sleep. I'm always tired. In fact, I'm so tired that I've actually crashed my car twice. Because I've fallen asleep at the wheel, and like I'm just not good at sleeping. I never learned how to sleep ever, I mean,
considering what you saw, I'm just saying, I'm going to throw that in there right now.
Considering I smoked
don't
crack
forget
when I was
that.
14.
Oh.
You don't want to. You can't leave that out either. I did a lot of heroin in my day, I mean, but that's. I'm not just saying that either. Like, addiction is a serious thing, and like I mean, I did a lot of opiates in my day, and like, I was an alcoholic before that, and I never slept. I never learned how to sleep. I just knew how to pass out, but I never learned how to sleep. So I'm always tired. Always, like to this day, I still don't know how to sleep. I don't know how to get to bed. I don't know how to like get under the covers and lay down and relax, And like I'm not seeing things on poles, and I'm not seeing shadow figures and men and grinning men. I'm not seeing toads. And
I totally agree with that part of it.
Right. So if those are your options, Shannon, like then what is it? What is it?
Right.
Are you tired? Or are you hallucinating? I mean, I've been on acid, I've been on mushrooms, I've been on every possible thing you can think of, and I never have ever have I seen a full body hallucination in my entire life, no matter how many mushrooms I've eaten. I mean, I don't get it how people pull this stuff off, and they say, "Oh no, you were too tired," or "Oh no, you're under a lot of stress." So you saw the grinning man last night, or "Oh you were too tired," so you saw this thing standing on a house that looked like a devil. It's like such, it's either that or it's the other. That's really what it comes down to, right? Am I missing something?
No, absolutely. Or it really is there, and you're like, by God, if it were me, and at one point it was only the one time, just like you, I'm like, right. I know what I saw, and I know that those 4 MFers were there. There's no way. There's no other explanation for that. Like, sorry. And Jeremy's was in the FRAY episode 59. And it is actually titled Deviatus. So if anybody wants to hear what he was going through and what the doctor just went, "Oh, you're sorry for your tired brain and seeing the things on top of the roofs and on top of the light bulbs.
Right.
Sorry about your brain. Go get some sleep. Blah blah blah." You're like, wow, that's thanks for the cop out there, doc, but I don't really agree with you.
No. I mean, and you're. I know you like Bigfoot. You're a Bigfoot kind of gal.
Mm-hmm.
And
love the big hairy guy.
I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I just don't know.
I know. You're like, are all those people tired and hallucinating a freaking Bigfoot in the woods? Really?
And what about dog?
Really, dog?
I mean, I hate the word dog. I know you hate the word dog, man. I know you hate it.
It makes me grin. It's just something about it.
It's because you have a pug. It's because you have a pug.
It probably is what it is. I'm like, oh.
It's because I have a German Shepherd. So when I say dog, man, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, and when you say werewolf, you're like, well, I can't say that because that means it turned from a human being into this hideous creature.
Maybe not, right?
Maybe not, yeah. There are crazier things like Thrones, Fates, and Nightmares out there that are actually buzzing around that not everyone can see. Yeah, and you're throwing up toads and other things.
Crabs? This woman threw up crabs, live crabs.
See, and that's interesting because I always bring up, I think I've brought up the movie Constantine every time we've talked, and I apologize for that, too. But I love that movie. And at one point, the demon itself, or the thing that was following him, turned to this mass of cockroaches and crabs and things, and right? And he had to do this little spell or something. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it. But and then it kind of just melted into the sidewalk, and all these little things are running into the sewer. And they made it funny because they show him kind of stomping on whatever bugs he could find. That was the remnants of this demonic entity.
Right.
But that's really interesting because so what you were saying earlier, what I'm getting at very long-windedly, I'm sorry, is that you were saying earlier that aspects of what they have taken from these real-life exorcisms and what these demons are capable of doing and have done are peppered into these very Hollywood-made movies.
Absolutely. In fact, there was a girl who was plagued. I think she was under maybe demonic oppression, and she woke up at night and she thought there was she heard like bugs, and she turned on her light, and her entire room, all the walls, like almost every square inch of the wall, was covered with cockroaches and cicadas and crickets, and they were all way bigger than they've been. And she screamed, and her mother came in there, and they were beating him with books, and they were flying everywhere. And this was Father C's, I think, his mentor told him this story, and it's like, that's there it is right there,
You brought up Fox Hollow Farm for a moment a while ago.
Yeah.
And when I was at Fox Hollow Farm, I was up in the apartment with Robert Graves, the owner of the house, Joe LeBlanc, who for a time lived at the home. A massive home, big, beautiful home. Above the garage, there's a separate apartment. Now, when Herb Baumeister was separating from Julie before he moved out, well, that moved out is that's a loose term, right? If you need to know the story, that's a long-winded story. I'm not going to tell it. But before he was no longer in the home, he moved up to the apartment. And it has a little kitchenette and the bathroom and a place to, sleep and everything. It's above the garage. And when Joe LeBlanc lived there for a time at Fox Hollow Farm, I was in that apartment and he showed me the wall. And he said at one point, I came into this apartment where I lived. There was at least 300 flies covering the walls. Just covering the walls for no apparent reason. And this is a man that for all intents and purposes, for the people that are in the house now, he had probably the most horrific experiences of anyone at Fox Hollow Farm. And that was being up in that apartment that Herb Baumeister lived in prior to him really, expiring from this plane of existence, is he was up in that apartment. So, the flies and the tie-in, I think you said earlier, Lucifer was the Lord of the Flies or something? Is that what you said? Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies. Interesting.
There you go. Yeah. Could have been a manifestation of him.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like Beelzebub would be attached to a place like that where a married man would go and when, the cat's away, the mice will play by murdering other people, I guess. That would kind of tie in. Seems like someone he would like, so... Yeah. And
it's not just that he was Lord of the Flies either. He was he was a seraphim. He was super powerful.
Yeah.
So I mean, the idea that Lucifer and Beelzebub they're almost like equals. Wow. But I mean, it's like I don't know. I mean, if you think of this like matrix or this pipeline of interconnectivity, you know what I'm saying? Of maybe they are in hell, or maybe they are in an astral plane, or maybe they are here with us. It doesn't matter where they are, but they can get to us in any way, shape, or form they want. And, who knows? Who knows why there was a bunch of flies on that spot, on that wall? Maybe it was a reminder. Hey, check this out.
Isn't that so interesting, though, that both of us have only had really the one confirmation sighting and then nothing since? And the fact that Father G was so interested in your family history and what you saw and what your father saw. Yeah. And he kind of, I'm sure even he was like, well, like I am. I'm like, well, why just the one thing? If I can see something like that once, maybe it was just a glitch in the, you use the word matrix. Perfect.
Right.
If it was just a glitch in the matrix, maybe that's all it was. But if it's more than that, why haven't you and I seen anything since then?
Right. And that's the thing I always go back to. Like, if it's a glitch, right? If it's a glitch and I had a glitch and you had a glitch and Jeremy had a glitch, why then are there priests all over the place doing exorcisms?
Right. Like the glitch is more than a glitch for some people. But why aren't we those people? It's just not a glitch. I mean, there's people that have been going for 40 years. Fighting the same demon because they're cursed, or this one particular woman has been coming for 9 years, and it's like, she comes every week for 9 years. Man. See, even then, those are the things that really tug at my heartstrings. And that story you told about the woman that was cursed since she was in the womb, that is really truly heartbreaking. And
awful.
Sometimes when you think of your parents and you're like, oh, sometimes they annoy me or this or that, you're like, oh my gosh, you really just should shut up and appreciate what you have, because
you could have been cursed.
I mean, my gosh.
It could
That's
have been
heartbreaking.
Chris.
And by the way, we do have actual heartstrings. We really
Yeah.
do. Look them up. It's amazing. We're amazing beings. So
It's crazy.
I could
And-
see
and-
why
and then-
someone that has no body would maybe want to, hey, I want to check this out for a while, you know.
Right, and there was another thing I wanted you to check out too, because I remember mentioned in some of the ancient religions on another episode, talking about some of the histories and things like that, and I think it was the Malis. Was it the Malis? The Mali tribes from Africa, and I think some of them ended up in New Zealand somehow, and. And a lot of times Catholicism and or Christianity does a lot of bad, and it's not Christians and Catholic inherently. It's not the religion. There's nothing wrong with the religion. I've said this on every episode. It's always the people who are involved with it. They either mistake things or they do things that they're not supposed to. It's usually a mistake. There's nothing inherently wrong with religion. It's the people in it that screw up, and and there was this great documentary on, and I cannot remember the name of it. I'll email it if I remember it. But there was this Mali woman who was they thought was suffering, suffering from possession, and they were treating her in such a weird way, that they were treating her with these old Mali traditions instead of letting Catholic priests come in and handle it. And the girl ended up dying, and they basically drowned her. They kept saying that
oh God.
Yeah, they kept saying that water was the key to this demon, and it was they had her in the shower and open her eyes. There was reenactments, but there was also interviews with people who were actually there.
When was this? When?
Not long ago.
Oh my gosh.
Not long ago. But they basically had her on the ground and they were forcing her to drink water because that's what their belief was. And these two Catholic priests came to the house and they're ready to do an exorcist. And the guys were like, "Get out of here. We got this."
Oh,
it was all family stuff. And it's was she possessed? People seem to think she was in the family. But was this the way to deal with it? I don't know. Do people die during possession? That's another thing I've been meaning to ask Father G. It's he's done 50 exorcisms. Has anybody died? I don't think so. I really don't think so.
You mean during the exorcism or just letting it go? Like the possession?
During the exorcism, did the people die?
Oh, yeah. Did we talk about that on the first round or the second? I think that was a question that I had. Because it's very dramatic when these things are going on, and obviously we have proof that they are puking up things and the bending backwards of bodies that shouldn't happen. But yeah, that's fascinating. And I think, I remember. I think that we were postulating that maybe that does happen, that there are deaths and expirations, but they are covered up.
Oh, right. Maybe that's why they have them sign the waiver now. It's well, if I die,
so the waiver's a real thing. the
waiver's a real thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That definitely could be why.
Yep, the waivers is a real deal, and it's just for. Well, I don't know if it's just for America, but it was. What's his name? Father C said it to Father G. He was like, "You should consider this when you go back to America and do exorcisms." Well, just because
probably, especially here, because we're so happy anyway. That's probably the smartest thing to do, just for that alone. Exactly. But that is fascinating.
And Father G was located in out of Silicon Valley, so it was it's a great book. It was a great movie, and it was great talking to the guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
you, though, are going to hopefully come on your podcast.
I would love to.
Can we talk about your podcast a little bit?
Yeah. So basically, what I want to do is, I want to get on there in the first episode, and I want to address it, and I've changed it. It's called The Fallen Ones. I don't know I don't know what the deal is with the show slug. I don't get that. but I just typed in whatever fit, and it came up as the Snake Pit. So if you look it up on Libsyn, either as the Fallen Ones or the Snake Pit, it'll come up. But there's nothing on there yet because I haven't recorded anything. But my whole idea is basically this. I'm going to come up with, me. At first, why I'm doing this, who I am, where I got my education, what I studied, blah, blah, blah. And then I think we're going to just jump right into some stories, and maybe interview some people, because that's part of it. That's why I like a lot of shows. I like call-in shows. I like a lot of shows for a lot of different reasons. There are some shows that are call-in shows where they do interviews, and I really like that. And then there are some shows where I just enjoy hearing the host's perspective on those things. So I'm trying to combine those two things where, half the show will be, all right, you have the floor. If I feel like you need to be pushed in a certain direction, then maybe I'll ask a question to provoke you in a certain direction or not. And then afterwards, I like to maybe talk about it theologically on my own, addressing the audience and saying, well, we just heard from this couple from Maine, for example, and this is what's going on in their lives. What are some, let's talk about this.
Well, see, and I like that format as most of us do not have the MTS after our name, so I think that you do need to utilize that as much as you can, and that will be very beneficial. And can I just say, before you go on, I like the name The Fallen Ones a lot.
Good.
Yes.
I hope it's not another podcast.
I mean, I'll search it right now, but I'm pretty sure it's not, because even when you type in demonology, there's not a whole lot out there specifically about that.
No, and I'm still not up on the whole how it get from Lisbon, how it gets to iPhone. You know what I'm saying?
We'll get there though. And the second that you, and we've been talking about Audacity and the woes that are Audacity, and it can be a woe at first. But, we'll get there, and just make sure you let me know. And I know that you will. We keep in pretty close contact, but
we do.
This is going to be a different podcast than most, because it will be somebody it's specifically about this subject, and there really isn't anything about that right now.
I don't think so.
I've gotten a lot of feedback when you come on, and I have a number of people that, I think I've told you this, but that have said, JP is my favorite guest, and I think it's great. And, I think also that it's good that we kind of we do keep it light at the same time when we're talking about these really heavy subjects. I think you have to have that sometimes. So that's why it's good that we have a good rapport with each other. But it is a very serious subject. So I'm happy that you're taking the next step. And I'm not saying that I'm really happy that the book is abandoned. Maybe that'll come back at some point.
I think it will.
Yeah, I do too, because I think you have a lot to say. And I think with the second that the podcast comes about, you're going to get inundated. And I can say this very confidently, that I cannot keep up with, and I'm not trying to brag or make myself look like some kind of a badass, but it's hard to keep up with the amount of correspondence that you get sometimes. And sometimes it's very, how's your day going, and this and that, and you can't really respond to all that stuff all the time. And I have everyone for it, but I don't really have time for that. I'm not trying to sound like a diva, but you kind of have to, you're going to have to filter through and get the stuff that's, okay, I need to kind of pull this in and make it a part of the show, or make it a part of my my knowledge in my brain, and keep it the front of the gray matter. So you're going to find that it's going to come really quickly. So I think that you maybe putting the book on the back burner at first is probably going to be a really good idea, because the podcast is going to open a whole new set of doors for you. I think so. Yeah. And some of it you may not even want to air, and you're like, gosh, this may be something that might be good for something for
I might
book,
backlog it or something like
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
And some of you guys, I mean, like you have your everyone has their own special sections. When you pay $5, you get extra content, things like that. Right. And like, I'm not nowhere. I'm not nowhere. I just use a double negative. How horrible.
I do it all the time.
But anyway, I mean, like, I'm gonna write this stuff out, and I'm gonna do it like very professionally, and I want people to respond to it, and I want, I don't want just a bunch of Jesus jumpers coming on and saying like, oh my God, my uncle got the stigmata.
That's amazing.
You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to avoid that. I don't want them to, this, that, and the other thing. I want to find, the genuine article, and I want to try to get people on, and I think that. I think that even though a few slip through the cracks, I think that Vic Cundiff is pretty good at that on his show, the Dogman Encounters, even though I know you hate that word.
Dogman.
I think...
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
I think he's pretty good at filtering out, like, the fakes. Although I don't know if something like that even exists, but when you listen to people talk about it, I don't know. Maybe it is just a bunch of for fun.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's something that you brought up from my show, but I think that these are things that are going to come up for your show that are going to be. It'll be like my show times 100. Is it you? Hold on, the dogs are barking.
Whose dogs? Yours?
Yeah, my dogs. I muted and I really hollered like I had to scream at the 100 kids. I had to mute out for that one. Yeah. People are like, oh, she is possessed. My God. God damn it, dogs. See, the bird did the same thing to me. I lose my train of thought. Oh, because you said that each state in the United States has its own exorcist. Right?
Well, yeah.
Like on call.
Diocese, right?
Yeah, and depending on the size of the state, maybe they have more than one. That's something I've never heard. And what I want to do is I want to tune into the fallen ones, and I want to learn that plus all this other stuff because I know that you're big on reading and you're researching. Right. You're a master. You got the master's in theological studies. This is what you do. So for me tuning into the fallen ones, that will be something like on each podcast, like I've said a million times, I do the podcast, I record the podcast, I learn something to even just record for my own show, let alone listen to other shows. So it's like getting, 25 books shoved into your brain at once. It's true. little pepperings, just little pepperings and pickings shoved in all at once. So
it's true, and I'm going to do the work, man. I'm really going to do the work. I'm going to try to release it. I mean, I'm not going to try. I am, I mean, your show, I think, is successful because of its consistency, and I think that I'm going to do mine every Tuesday night at, I think, 8:00 Eastern.
Nice. Yes, that's a good time.
No, maybe not 8. I think 9. I think 9 Eastern. So you guys get it a little bit later because I don't want, because it should be creepy, maybe something to listen to before bedtime. So maybe, 9:00 Eastern Standard, every Tuesday. And like, I can fill an hour myself, just telling the history of something if I wanted to.
Right.
And I wrote it down ahead of time, and I'm not afraid to do that, to just shed light on a topic and say, okay, so next week we have so-and-so coming on, but before that, I want to preface you on some things that you need to know before we have that conversation. And, I'm not afraid to go to the Diocese of Providence, and I'm not afraid to ask them, who's your exorcist? Or, do you guys have a list of the last, few exorcists? I'll pull all the stops. I mean, I still have people at PC that I can call, that I can talk to. I mean, everyone's really hush-hush about it. I will tell you that much. The priests that I have, it does. And the priests that I've talked to have said, no, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. Even the retired ones. I'm like, you're retired. They're like, no, I can't tell you. Yeah. Yeah. Like, they cannot tell me who the exorcist is in Providence, because I want to talk to him.
How do you, how do you think you might go about finding that out unless you don't want to say?
Other than faking an exorcist?
Yeah, right.
A possession?
I'll do some stretches. I'll try to do some back bends.
Right. I'll put a toad in your mouth and come visit me.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, we can turn this to ash. No problem. We totally got this.
Light an M80, spit it out real quick. Oh my God.
Right. We need you. Come on over. 911.
I don't know. I mean, I also think that, maybe just reaching out to, what's his name? I can't remember his name. Archbishop of Providence. Not the Archbishop. That's stupid. What am I saying? I can't remember his name. House dude. I'm a
Your
theologian.
tongue is being held.
It is. It's being held by tongue.
This is someone local at Providence College, you're saying?
No. This is the chief of the diocese in Providence.
Oh, okay. So can we go ahead and plug the Fallen Ones? Have you settled on that name for your podcast? And when might we be able to expect episode 1? It's not a pressure. I'm just throwing that out there in case you know.
No, I feel a lot of pressure.
You're like, thanks a lot. Actually, I do.
To be honest with you, I was hoping to get it out by Halloween, which didn't happen. I'm really bummed out about that. I'm gonna get it out by. Let's see. Tomorrow's Tuesday. I'm going to try and get it out the 27th, the first episode. So 2 weeks from today.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to try and get out the first episode. And I think the first episode, and I have settled on the Fallen Ones. That's going to be the name of it. As soon as I figure out how to put music in the background, I'm going for it. Because that's all I need to do.
If we need a screen share and I will hop on with you, we will do it together.
I think sometime during the week. I don't know if you have much time or something.
Yes.
Probably not.
No. Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to do it.
We
won't do it tonight because we've already gone 3 hours. But we will do it. We will do it because this week's actually a good week for that. So we will do that. And
anytime. I mean, even next week. All I got to do is figure out how to get some music in the background so I can, and it's mostly classical music. So I'm pretty sure classical music is public domain. So I think classical music goes well when you talk about things like biblical.
Dude, yeah.
We're talking like, Moonlight Sonata, Requiem, things like that.
Nice dark tones. Perfect.
Yeah, things like that.
In fact, I think I have a website. No, I shouldn't say I think I have a website. There is a website. It does exist. I don't think. I know because I visited it. But I think that it differentiates between the public domain versus you have to pay for this and give credit and blah blah blah. It's a difference between, as you know, between that. But
okay.
I'm going to look that up before we get on for the
cool.
Yeah, but we'll get that figured out because
that's awesome. Because I just assumed that.
Actually, anything
classic,
over 50 years old, I think.
Yeah.
I believe. Is like public domain. You can use it. So I will.
Okay.
That's why I use the War of the Worlds as part of my intro. I cut that in. I looked it up. I'm like, can I use this? Blah blah blah. And I'm like, it's over 50 years old, and boom, I can use. I took little pieces from that because I knew I could. I didn't have to pay thousands of dollars to whomever.
Right.
So yeah, we'll get that figured out. But okay, I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah, no. So, I'm hoping to get it out by the 27th of this month, the Fallen Ones. Good. And like I said, I think the first episode is going to be very simple. It'll probably be an hour, maybe a little over. It'll be a little bit about me. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a lot about what the podcast is going to be about, what I'm going to talk about, my hopes and dreams for the podcast, what I'm hoping to get from the people listening. Because I need some of that stuff to start coming in. I do have a few interviews that I could. I know the guy in Maine. He will come on. He's agreed to come on. I do have another woman who's agreed to come on who said she saw a demon on her daughter's back. So I would like to talk to her about that with with its claws digging into her.
That's interesting. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Did you hear me talking with Pam about the fact that she can see she's the one with the Fae episodes. She can see various levels of things basically clawing into people's backs.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm sorry.
I would love to know.
It all ties in. I mean, it's crazy.
I know. And next time you talk to her, ask her if there's a word for that, because I think there's a word for that for people that can see. Things that are in that realm in between,
Yeah.
But that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for the 27th of this month. I got to put in a little bit more effort. But I'm set to go. I got everything I need. I got my Yeti. It matches my computer.
Yes,
it's
you
red.
Do have a Yeti. The black or the silver, or which one did you get?
Red.
Oh, it's the red. That's right. Very fitting, right?
It is red. I am all decked out to go. I got everything you told me to get, basically. So,
well, I'm excited.
Hopefully, yeah, I'm interested to hear this episode compared to the other ones, and just because I did this one through the Eddy.
You're gonna like it. There's a difference. It's not like the other ones are that subpar. It's just that it's kind of one of those things where no one notices if your house is clean. They notice if it's dirty. Those kind of things. Like it's not like it really comes up until it comes up. You're like, oh, okay.
Well, it's funny because this room where I am talking now is not where I'm going to be recording.
No.
No. It's, I have a different room in my house that's it's full of stuff, which is great for sound absorption, and it's carpeted wall to wall. So it's going to be nice and quiet in there.
Yeah, you're already one up on me because I don't even have a room like that. So as you know, for now when I'm home alone, I can record downstairs in my office, but I have to I have the pop filter on my Yeti, and I have to be right up against it because...
Really?
Yeah, because I have to tile on the floor. The whole house is tile, and it's a pretty big room, and there's no sound absorption in here. But other than that, I'm upstairs in the closet, so I can kind of... It's hot as the hell that we were just talking about. You know that. I'm sweating my balls off in the closet tonight. So nights like this with you,
you were recording in a closet. That's friggin' hysterical.
Dude, yeah, you know what? In fact, most of the episodes that you hear of Into the Fray are recorded from the upstairs closet, and it's perfect because it's a closet. It's got all the clothes hanging up around me, but it's hot as hell. It's hot as the Far Side hell we were just talking about with the guys laughing in the suggestion box. I'm like, suggestion. Get an effing recording studio, Shannon. God damn it.
You know what? I will say this because I tell you, I work with the guys getting out of jail, and one of them decided, or a couple of them decided to make a studio out of one of the closets.
Yeah.
And for soundproofing, like, I don't know, they probably don't even have Dunkin' Donuts in Nevada, do they?
Oh, hell yeah, we do.
Oh, you do? Well, you know the trays they give you if you buy like more than 2 coffees?
Yeah.
They use that as soundproofing.
Dude, whatever works.
They just stapled it on every like panel they could, and like they just like hung a mic up in there and like wrapped. I guess I don't know what they did.
See, and I know the difference when I'm recording. You hopefully will only have to edit once, right? You record and then you have to edit depending on what points or how many slip ups you have during a show. You hopefully only have to go through it once. Yeah. So I know the difference between when I'm downstairs versus upstairs. The problem is the computer is much better downstairs, but if I'm upstairs, the sound, the audio aspect is better. But the computer is a little more bogged down with crap, and it's older. So it's kind of that push and pull with each thing. But on this one downstairs, me personally, I'm more comfortable, so I of course would rather be downstairs.
Yeah,
and
you know
just
what?
with my
Actually,
face shoved into the. I'm fine with that. I'll eat this thing if I have to, versus just being hot for the entire time I'm talking to somebody, because it's enjoyable, funny. Except for burning in hell.
Except for burning in hell in Nevada.
Yeah, up in the closet.
It was funny because I was thinking
vent.
about buying a pop guard, because when I used to play in a band, and my singer had a pop guard, but when he recorded, I was like, you know what? I don't need a pop guard. I'm not going to be screaming into my microphone. I'm going to be talking. I have such an old, baritone voice. It's not going to matter. And I think in the padded room, I don't think it'll matter either. But it's funny that you bring that up, because I know how to cut and edit and stuff, but I don't know how to pull other noises out of my recordings. If I would have dropped something on the floor right now, and I wouldn't know how to pull that out.
Yeah. Well, I'll show you that. It's a priceless thing in Audacity. You can't pull everything out, but you can pull most things out,
which is fine. I mean, I don't expect to be making a lot of mistakes. If I make a mistake, I'm just gonna go back and start again, and then just cut it out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if I'm doing a recording, obviously that's different. I can't do that. But if I'm, doing my own show where I'm not doing a recording that week, if I screw something up, I might just stop and then read the sentence again. And then, this way I'll know where I can just cut the whole section and splice it together.
Yeah, and when I'm at my worst is when I have to do an intro. When I'm by myself and just recording into Audacity, for some reason, it takes me forever. And I have to take like 3-4 takes, and it's really annoying. But when I have someone on with me like you, and I have that bounce back, for some reason, I don't know what that is. I'm like, really? It's not that I'm nervous. It's just that's what it comes off like, because I'm like, that's when I swear my most, is when I have to do my intros, or maybe an insider episode where I have to just read something. I am constantly screwing up. So, and by the way, the pop filter thing. So I used to have this older condenser mic, which I dumped the second I got my Yeti, thanks to a nice enough to cover the cost of the Yeti from a listener. But
nice.
All I did was, I've had this Yeti for a long time. I love it. I don't want to replace it unless it's with the Yeti Pro. Then I can use my mixer board. That's a whole nother story. Anyhow, the old pop filter that came with that crappy little condenser mic, it didn't fit on the Yeti. So all I did is I snipped the back of this pop filter, and it fits directly over the Yeti. It just covers it with love. I don't really like the ones that are the round... the extender arms, and then it's like the round screen. That I don't like that so much. I kind of like the one that fits right over the actual shape of the mic, and so that's what I'm using. So that's cool. All it took. It was like, I think this pop filter was probably a few bucks, and I just snipped it, and it fit fine.
Yeah, they're super, super cheap. The ones I was looking at were like $60, and I've seen Tim and Lance use those on Missing More Mari podcast. I listen to True Crime podcast once in a while.
Yes.
And it seems like every time I'm watching someone on a podcast, they have a Yeti in front of them.
You can't be in them, dude. You just can't, because you can adjust.
And so you're saying the Yeti Pro goes through something first? It goes through.
So you know how ours has the USB that goes into your computer.
But this goes into a mixer and then into your computer?
The Pro has the XLR plug-in, which means it's like that 3-pronged deal, right? And then the second, and it's, I don't know why I did this before I just had the microphone for it, but I went ahead and I bought a mixer board. And if I had the Yeti Pro right now, I could plug it into the mixer board, and then without using Skype or a Malto or the Yeti.
Really?
Yeah, like you can adjust the levels and the pitch and the gain right on the mixer board. And there are so many dials on this thing. I'm looking at it right now. I have no clue how to use it. Hopefully, once I get the Yeti Pro at some point, I can do that. But it just ups the ante for the audio quality of your podcast, right?
Really?
So it's just, it's baby steps,
I should have done that. I have a 32. No, I have a 16 channel recorder. I have one.
You do?
We used to use in my band. Yeah.
I mean, it's not the coup de grace. I don't know, because I've never used it, but people are like, you gotta get a mixer board, blah blah blah. To me, the Yeti right now sounds amazing, and because Skype lately has really been stepping up, and I don't know what's going on, but maybe it's because a lot of us are talking shit about it. But as you've seen, we've gone for 3 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah, there's been nothing. So I don't know if they finally got enough feedback going, hey, Skype, you suck the biggest ass in the world, but they have stepped up. So I'm not using the Uber anymore. I'm using Skype, and it's crystal clear. Good. So the Yeti, though, from my end and your end, because you have the Yeti as well. Big shout out to Yeti. But they're amazing. I love this this microphone. So I'm not in a rush. To get a new microphone, a $300 Pro that I can go through my mixer to learn something else. And there's no reason, because I get good feedback that, hey, you have really good audio.
No, if my show turns out sounding like yours, I would be more than happy.
Oh, thanks.
Like more than happy, because no, I'm not just saying that. Like your show, like I think it's like it's just perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like the way it's just like Yeah, if it could sound like that, like that's why I've been asking when I've been listening to you, is because that's how I want it to sound. Like if my voice can come through as clear as yours does on your show, I think that would be perfect. I really do.
Well, I appreciate that. Hey,
Yeah.
before we go, and I touch base with you on something after we, you need to do your Q Alan Watts thing, but
oh, of course.
Can you please tell everyone where's the best place to find you on social media, or do you want them emailing you? Let everybody know where to find you.
So right now I've been more active on Facebook because I've been getting yelled at that I'm not. I've been asking everybody. Boy, I don't have a lot of friends on Facebook, and everyone keeps telling me, you need to be on there every day. You need to be on there every day. So you need to be on Facebook every day, John. So Facebook, Rhode Island Demonological Society, or the Rhode Island Demonological Society, either one, that'll bring you to me. You can message me. You can send me a private message. Or you can email me at livedeepnotruth at gmail.com. That's separated by periods. So live.deep.no.truth at gmail.com. So whichever way you feel comfortable getting in touch with me, or you can go ahead and call Shannon and tell her, hey, where's that theologian guy?
That's right. It's time again. Let's
hear
hear
it. She will hook us up. And I just happen to have the demonic cards in my hand right now, and I'm just going to pull one out just for the heck of it.
Let's see. Let's see what they say.
And it is right off the top. You know who it is?
What?
Lucifer.
Are you kidding?
Right off the top.
We have been talking a lot about the dark side tonight.
The fallen angel.
A lot. And what is your podcast name? I'm sorry.
The Fallen Ones.
Yeah. Oh, there you
Lucifer is a fallen angel. Wow. He's not just. I've just been shuffling cards for the past 5 minutes.
Have you?
Yep. And I was like, let me pick one before we go.
Oh my gosh. And you've got the biggest fallen one of all.
And that's it.
Wow. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. A little creepy.
Yeah. I don't quite know how to segue into my closing comments now. That's pretty awesome, actually. Okay, I think that means that, like I said, I like that name better than the other one that you mentioned, so I think that that's a big thumbs up from whomever.
I think that's a big thumbs up from the man downstairs.
The man downstairs. It's always the basement, right? God bless.
So I just thanks for having me on again, Shannon. You're the best.
Absolutely. You're one of my favorites, and
oh, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I keep going through the Latin numbers. It's Throne, Fates, and Nightmares, Editionis, blah blah blah, right? Because
blah blah blah.
We're gonna have. It's gonna be more. many Latin numbers to follow. So
and who knows? We might get up to Super Bowl numbers,
dude. Yeah, if the NFL can do it, we can do it.
Right.
Please.
And with that, you should cue Mr. Alan Watts.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. But nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the cohorts to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. else. They will say, no, we don't believe literally in reincarnation. That after your funeral, you will suddenly become somebody different, living somewhere else. They will say reincarnation means this, that if you sitting here now are really convinced that you're the same person who walked in at the door half an hour ago, you're being reincarnated. If you're liberated, you'll understand that you're not. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. There is only the present. That's the only real you that there is. The Zen master Dogen put it in this way. He said, spring does not become the summer. First there is summer, and then there is spring. When you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, get up and walk across the room. And he comes back and he says, where are your footprints? They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.